Chapter 2046. Since you dared to ruin my plan, I will let you know the price you have to pay. When he realized that the situation was no longer under his control, a gloomy look flashed across Long Quan's eyes. Only now did Long Quan understand that Long Chen's initial goal was to delay him and not to compete with him. From the looks of it, Long Chen's plan had succeeded. What Reverend Blood Demon and Reverend Blood Corpse wanted Long Quan to do had already been ruined by Long Chen. Originally, Long Quan wanted to use the strange energy that he had condensed to gain control over the Long Meng Heavenly Paradise to a certain extent. This would cause the Dragon Tribe members in the Long Meng Heavenly Paradise to be invaded by the power of the bounded domain. After that, Long Quan would be able to condense the bounded domain's power and snatch the bounded pearl from Long Chen's hands. That way, Long Quan would be able to fully unleash the power of the bounded domain's ruler. But now, under the continuous battle with Long Chen, Long Quan seemed to have forgotten about this matter. A portion of the strange aura that Long Quan had condensed before had been suppressed by the other Dragon Clan cultivators, while the other portion had been suppressed. Another portion had been absorbed by Long Quan to be used in the battle with Long Chen. In other words, the current Long Quan had not done anything during the battle with Reverend Blood Corpse and Reverend Blood Demon. As for Reverend Blood Corpse and Reverend Blood Demon, they had already fallen into an extremely dangerous situation. If Reverend Blood Corpse and Reverend Blood Demon knew what Long Quan had done, they would probably vomit blood from anger. End the battle quickly. Was there still a chance of survival? Long Quan was someone who had experienced many storms and waves. Since he had already fallen into such a dangerous situation, he had to do something that no one would expect. After this voice rang out in Long Quan's mind, Long Quan's entire body shook violently. Following which, the strange energy around Long Quan seemed to expand by quite a bit. Then, under Long Chen's astonished gaze, Long Quan's entire body turned into that of a dragon. Above the lake, it disappeared. When Long Chen saw this scene, he hurriedly tried to sense the changes in Hong Meng's aura. However, the response he received was that there was no change at all. This meant that Long Quan's disappearance was not a powerful attack like Long Chen's. Just like that, he disappeared from this world. Could it be that Long Quan had escaped? Just as this thought flashed through Long Chen's mind, a burst of strange energy suddenly attacked him. It immediately made Long Chen sober up a lot, and then he saw the current situation clearly. At the spot where Long Quan's figure had disappeared, the strange aura once again filled the air. However, unlike before, there were only a few strands of strange aura this time around. However, what shocked Long Chen the most was that there were only a few strands of strange aura. This strange energy was even more powerful than the shock from when the strange energy had spread throughout the world earlier. You're the one who forced me to do this. At the very most, I'll just destroy this region. You bunch of ants, I want to see how you can jump around in the face of death. At the same time, a cold shout rang out from the horizon. At this moment, Long Quan's voice sounded as if he had already entered a state of madness. When he heard those words, Long Chen could not help but think of the tyrannical impact brought about by the strange energy waves around him. He could not help but put on a serious expression. The aura of Hong Meng around him slowly condensed, and the domain pearl in his hand slowly released the last bit of energy that was left. The last bit of energy. After being catalyzed by Long Chen several times, the energy within the domain pearl had already been channeled into nothingness. No matter how much Long Chen used his spirit energy, the energy that the domain pearl could release was already very little. I am the ruler of this region. Once I give the order, destroy. While Long Chen was still thinking about how to deal with Long Quan's attack, Long Quan's crazy voice rang out in the sky. Woo woo. As Long Quan's voice rang out, the originally chaotic aura of Hong Meng above the Dragon Lake suddenly shook violently. Like a tidal wave, it rushed towards the frightening strange energy wave. The instant these two completely different energies came into contact with each other, The strange energy waves unexpectedly absorbed the energy within Hong Meng's aura and became extremely powerful. After that, the strange energy waves that had been firmly suppressed by the Dragon Clan members seemed to have sensed Long Quan's power. At this moment, they actually broke through the restraints with an unstoppable force and directly returned to the horizon. A gorgeous light screen condensed above the Dragon Lake. It was several thousand feet long and seemed to have covered the entire Dragon Meng heavenly abode. When Venerable Blood Corpse, who was already firmly restrained by a dozen Dragon Clan elders, saw this scene, he could not help but turn around and scold, "Are you crazy? If you destroy this region, how are we going to return to the origin continent?" Long Quan did not reply. His expression became even more ferocious and terrifying. The gorgeous light screen that was condensed from the strange energy waves successfully sealed the entire horizon in a few breaths' time. Long Quan's body also rose into the air along with the strange energy waves. The strange energy waves gathered around Long Quan. The dense energy waves caused Long Quan to look extremely powerful. This region, my region, has been occupied by a group of ants for tens of thousands of years. The gorgeous light screen trembled and Long Quan's shouts became extremely heart-wrenching. Long Quan's entire being was no different from a madman. Under Long Quan's control, a wave of energy gushed out and directly bombarded the Dragon Lake. The entire Dragon Lake was instantly split into two, and a bottomless chasm was torn open in the middle. The Dragon Lake was filled with a rich and dense great essence. The lake water in the Dragon Lake gushed towards the chasm. Long Chen's expression was grave as he looked at Long Quan, who seemed to have gone through an earth-shattering transformation in a short period of time. For a moment, he felt that the situation was troublesome. Right now, Long Quan's strength had already surpassed the entire Dragon Meng heavenly abode. The Pearl of Domain had also lost its power at this moment. If this continued, Long Quan could do whatever he wanted without anyone being able to stop him. Perhaps it would really be like what Long Quan had said before. The entire Dragon Meng heavenly abode would be destroyed. With nowhere to go, the only choice left for an ant was to die. Long Quan, who was under the sky, seemed to have seen through something. He immediately unleashed several waves of energy waves. These waves of energy waves were not targeted at a single person. Instead, they spread across the entire Dragon Meng heavenly abode. After a series of chaotic attacks, many members of the Dragon Clan were injured. Chapter 2047. Just as Long Chen was thinking about how to deal with it, a gust of cold wind suddenly blew through the Long Meng Utopia. A wave of majestic Dragon Clan bloodline power passed by, and the entire Dragon Lake was filled with howling winds. Roar! A desolate dragon's roar rang out, and Long Chen was shocked. For a moment, he could not figure out where the dragon's roar came from. When Long Chen straightened out his thoughts, he realized that the light screen that Long Quan had condensed had flashed with a strong pressure. This pressure didn't come from within Long Meng Grotto Heaven at all, and it came from outside instead. The wild wind whistled, and seemed to have penetrated the light screen. The supreme force that was mixed within the wild wind was also directly emitted the instant it penetrated the light screen. A somewhat inconspicuous dragon-shaped force slowly gathered above the Dragon Lake. Only when the strength it emitted became increasingly great did the members of the dragon tribe present realize just how frightening it was. The energy in the shape of a dragon was actually formed from the convergence of everything in the world, and the energy contained within it had already surpassed all the energy in the world. Thus, it had softened the energy and formed a domain. When the dragon-shaped force was completely condensed, the howling winds in the Long Meng Utopia laughed bitterly, and the sky changed color. Finally, two figures broke through the restraints of the light screen with irreversible momentum. When the dragon-shaped force was successfully condensed, the two figures finally appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Long Chen recognized the two of them. One was Long Yuan, whom he could not be more familiar with. The other was Wind Dragon, who was in charge of controlling the entire Long Meng utopia. Wind Dragon was the same as Ice Dragon ancestor. They had both experienced that great battle, and were also elders of the Dragon clan who had survived that great battle. Long Yuan had actually managed to invite Wind Dragon over. When Long Mu saw this scene from afar, he could not help but let out a long sigh of relief. With Wind Dragon's help, this battle could be said to be in the bag. Many members of the Dragon tribe began to cheer. When Long Kuan, who was standing on the light screen, saw the sudden appearance of the two figures, and could clearly sense that one of them possessed a strength that was able to forcefully shatter the light screen that he had painstakingly condensed, Long Kuan's expression became slightly more restrained. However, very quickly, Long Kuan regained his resentful expression. He's just a slightly larger ant, and he's similarly unable to withstand a single blow in my eyes. Yet, he's actually worthy of all of you jumping for joy? Long Kuan's voice rang out from the sky. At the same time, a dense and strange aura gushed out from the crack in the sky. It was as though the sea had broken through a dam. In an instant, it blotted out the sky and covered the sun as it flew towards the dragon-shaped aura that was condensed under the sky. Feng Long did not hesitate. First, he signaled Long Yuan to leave with his eyes. Then, he condensed all the energy in his body and controlled the dragon-shaped energy that he had just condensed to collide with Long Kuan. Long Yuan hurriedly left and flew towards Long Chen's side. At the same time, an earth-shattering explosion rang out. In an instant, Long Yuan, who had yet to stop his body, felt a shockwave from behind him. Then, he was sent flying towards Long Chen, who was in front of him. Long Chen hurriedly moved his body. After the activation of Hong Meng, he barely managed to catch Long Yuan, who was about to fall to the ground. Boom! Another violent collision occurred. The violent winds between the heavens and the earth had already begun to tear apart space. It was as though the entire world had already fallen into the wild dance between Feng Long and Long Kuan. It was as though they were fighting for the world. When this collision occurred, the shockwave released by the shockwave had already broken through the horizon of the Long Meng heavenly paradise and started to spread towards the outside world. Within the Long Meng heavenly paradise, one could feel the aura of the Hong Meng from the outside world. At this moment, the Long Meng heavenly paradise and the Long Meng polar region were connected. After the collision, ripples spread out in all directions. The Dragon Lake below churned violently. The Dragon Lake water that was originally pouring into the chasm actually gushed out at this moment. The aura of the Hong Meng instantly condensed into an extremely destructive Hong Meng shockwave and rushed out in all directions. All the Dragon Clan cultivators near the Dragon Lake fled in all directions at this moment. They were afraid that the Hong Meng shockwave would come close to them. Under such a tragic and inhumane collision, the dragon-shaped shockwave condensed by the Wind Dragon suddenly shattered. It directly released an incomparably intense and chaotic Hong Meng shockwave that disappeared under the sky. Rumble! The thunderous sound of the Dragon Clan's bloodline power continuously rang out. Wave after wave, it exhausted the strange shockwave that held an absolute advantage in the sky, as though it was completely helpless. I already said that you're just a slightly bigger ant, but you didn't believe me. So what if you've protected the Long Meng heavenly paradise for tens of thousands of years? Didn't you still exhaust too much of your strength? Perhaps it was just as Long Kuan had said. In any case, it was obvious that the battle between Wind Dragon and Long Kuan had ended with Long Kuan holding the absolute advantage. Perhaps Wind Dragon was also curious as to why Long Kuan had become so unyielding and strong. Long Chen could explain this point to him, but it was indeed a little complicated. Furthermore, the most important thing now was how to successfully kill Long Kuan. Compared to Venerable Blood Corpse and Venerable Blood Demon, Long Kuan was clearly more important. After all, Venerable Blood Corpse and Venerable Blood Demon were summoned by Long Kuan. It seemed that Long Kun had already prepared for this. Otherwise, Venerable Blood Corpse and Venerable Blood Demon would not be able to possess Elder Mu Long and the other Dragon Clan elders so quickly. These two Dragon Clan elders must have been killed by Long Kun long ago. Long Kun and the Wind Dragon were in a stalemate. The Wind Dragon did not take Long Kun's mockery to heart. However, the battle between the two of them made the Wind Dragon slightly worried. The truth was just as Long Kun had said. If this stalemate continued, the Wind Dragon would not be Long Kun's match. Long Chen, who was watching the battle between the Wind Dragon and Long Kun from afar, furrowed his brows. Can Senior Wind Dragon defeat Long Kun? Long Yuan, who was beside him, was slightly flustered. Long Chen shook his head and said, "It's hard to say now. I'm afraid that Senior Wind Dragon won't be able to hold on for long. Could it be that even Senior Wind Dragon has no way to deal with it? The Ice Dragon ancestor is currently being held back by Venerable Blood Demon. If he is unable to kill Long Kun, the entire Long Meng Heavenly Paradise will be in danger." Long Yuan said anxiously. Long Chen naturally knew the pros and cons of the situation. He immediately gathered Hong Meng around him and said, "Perhaps Senior Wind Dragon needs my help." The moment he finished speaking, Long Chen leaped up. His entire body turned into a ray of light and pounced towards Long Kun. Chapter 2048. As Long Chen flew, the pearl of domain in his hand suddenly flashed with a ray of light. With great waves in his heart, Long Chen felt that it was time to go all out. With Long Chen's Hong Meng power, even if he could recover his heavenly dragon real body, it would be like a mantis trying to stop a chariot against Long Kun, who was now connected to the Long Meng Grotto Heaven. After all, even the Wind Dragon was not Long Kun's match, let alone Long Chen. Therefore, Long Chen could only place his hopes on the Pearl of Domain in his hand. Even if the Pearl of Domain did not have its initial power, it still existed. Previously, Long Chen had been activating the energy within the Pearl of Domain. This was clearly an extremely unstable method of attack. Therefore, even if these attacks landed on Long Kun's body, they would only cause him some minor injuries. They would not be able to harm his vitals at all. In other words, unless Long Chen successfully refined the Pearl of Domain and refined the power within it, Long Chen would be able to unleash the strongest power of the Pearl of Domain. The Pearl of Domain did not belong to Hong Meng. It came from the Origin Mainland, and the power within it must be the power of the Origin Mainland. No one in Hong Meng could tell Long Chen whether he could successfully refine it and how he should refine it. All of this depended on Long Chen to figure it out by himself, and this kind of exploration would often lead to failure. The price of failure was very likely to be one's life. However, Long Chen would never retreat because of death. It was not because of anything else, but simply because Long Chen was that one in a million Long Chen. Long Chen poured all of his soul power into the Pearl of Domain. At the same time, Long Chen also let his consciousness enter the Pearl of Domain. This time, if he succeeded, he would be unparalleled in the world. If he failed, he would vanish like smoke. In an instant, the world before Long Chen's eyes underwent some ingenious changes. In Long Chen's eyes, the light screen that covered the heavens and earth turned into a vast dome filled with pure energy. Within this dome, the place where the energy was the purest was where Long Kun was. Long Chen could not help but tremble when he sensed the power coming from the sky. It turned out that this vital energy originated from the entire Dragon Meng utopia. Or perhaps it could be said that it originated from the entire world. Although Long Chen did not know what the word world domain meant in the origin continent, it was obvious from Long Kun's reaction that the world domain was something that was hard to come by in the origin continent. It should be something similar to the Hong Meng Yuan Jie's domain. Perhaps this kind of thing was the true creation of the world. The energy that was slowly being released from the Pearl of Domain was the same as Long Kun's sky screen. It was probably because of this that Long Kun no longer called himself the Lord of the World Domain. At this moment, the Pearl of Domain was the symbol of the Lord of the World domain. Dragon Meng Utopia. This name originated from the Dragon Meng polar region. Then, its original name was just a world domain? The Wind Dragon was still in a deadlock with Long Kun. Long Chun took advantage of this opportunity and chose to pour all of his consciousness into the Pearl of Domain. Suddenly, Long Chun seemed to have come into contact with that energy. It was a power that was even stronger than Hong Meng's aura. Holding on to it was equivalent to holding on to the world. Long Chun tried to come into contact with this energy. However, before he could even get close, he was rejected by this energy. At the same time, this was the first time that Long Chun truly felt a piercing pain from this energy. Perhaps this energy was too much of a conflict with the Hong Meng aura that Long Chun had previously cultivated. This caused Long Chun to be unable to absorb or even touch this energy. Every time he tried to get close, Long Chun would feel a heart-wrenching pain. The power of a foreign world was often this unruly. Perhaps in this energy's heart, it was also unwilling to submit to someone from another world. How could Long Chun give up so easily? Once again, he gathered his energy and directly activated his spirit energy to the limit, rushing towards the source of this energy. Qi. Just as Long Chen's spirit energy was about to suppress the entire Pearl of Domain, the energy suddenly unleashed a counterattack. In an inconspicuous manner, it stabbed towards the center of Long Chen's spirit energy. At this moment, this energy seemed to be psychic. If Long Chen did not retreat, his spirit energy would definitely suffer a great backlash. If he still could not absorb this energy, Long Chen would pay the price of his life. After all, at this very moment, Long Chen had already poured all of his consciousness and spirit energy into the Pearl of Domain. This trip was extremely important to Long Chen. A sinister look flashed across Long Chen's mind. His entire spirit body suddenly trembled at this moment. In front of his eyes, the spirit energy had already turned into nothingness. In Long Chen's probing, only the source of this energy was left. Rush over, control this energy, absorb this energy, and refine this energy. Perhaps the current Long Chen had also fallen into a state of madness like Long Kun. Even if he knew that he would either die or be seriously injured, he would still fight for this last sliver of hope. This was Long Chen. Long Chen's spirit body was violently attacked. The intense pain of having his soul pierced directly into his spirit. However, Long Chen could not care about anything else. At this very moment, everything was nothingness. Hoo-hoo! In an instant, Long Chen's spirit energy was on the verge of collapse. However, it was also at this moment that Long Chen truly came into contact with the source of this energy, the cultivation foundation of the origin continent, the source of the Pearl of Domain's power. Long Chen did not care about anything else. There were millions of people blocking his way. Even if Long Chen did not surrender, control, absorb, refine. In an instant, Long Chen had completed the control of this energy. How is this possible? At the same time, Long Kun, who was in a deadlock with Feng Long, suddenly had an extremely shocked expression. He hurriedly looked towards Long Chen's location. When he saw the Pearl of Domain on Long Chen's body, his expression instantly turned sluggish. As the Lord of the Domain, Long Kun was naturally able to sense the Pearl of Domain. Therefore, when the Pearl of Domain was acting strangely, Long Kun was the first to sense this change. How is this possible? How can an ant control the Pearl of Domain? This time, Long Kun could no longer maintain his previous attitude of looking down on Hong Meng. Chapter 2049. When Long Chen took out the Pearl of Domain, Long Kun wasn't too surprised. After all, the Pearl of Domain was used to block the awakening of the Ice Dragon ancestor. As time passed, the consciousness of the Pearl of Domain would gradually disappear. Therefore, when the Ice Dragon ancestor awakened, the Pearl of Domain would most likely be controlled by the Ice Dragon ancestor. However, Long Kun knew that the power of the Pearl of Domain originated from the origin mainland. It was a spiritual treasure formed by the accumulation of supreme power when a region was formed. With the strength of the people in Hongmeng, it was impossible for them to fully control it. They had to use the power of the origin mainland to refine the Pearl of Domain. In Hongmeng, there were only 3 people who could use the power of the origin mainland. They were Venerable Blood Demon, Venerable Blood Corpse, and Long Kun himself. Because of this, Long Kun wasn't worried that the Pearl of Domain would be refined by Long Chen. He had never thought about it, but now reality gave Long Kun a resounding slap in the face. Long Chen actually used Hongmeng's aura to forcefully break through the power of the Pearl of Domain and refine it? If that was the case, in Long Kun's mind, controlling the Pearl of Domain was equivalent to controlling a region. The Pearl of Domain emitted a strange brilliance. Long Chen's soul flew out from it and returned to his body. The Pearl of Domain was firmly held in Long Chen's hand. Instantly, the Long Meng Grotto heaven trembled a little. For a moment, the people from the Dragon Clan in the Long Meng Grotto heaven watched this scene with fear. Although not many people knew what Long Chen was going through, they all knew that what Long Chen was about to do was definitely extremely dangerous. The strength of the Hong Meng Yuan Jie was actually able to unleash such a ferocious power in this battle. This truly caused these Hong Meng cultivators to turn pale with fright. Wind Dragon seemed to have sensed the change in Long Kun and immediately condensed another wave of energy around his body. At the same time, he turned around and looked at Long Chen, who had caused Long Kun to lose his balance. Although he did not know what Long Chen was doing, since it was able to cause Long Kun to lose his head, it was definitely not something simple. Thus, if he were to grab hold of this rare opportunity, he might be able to kill Long Kun in one strike. At this moment, Long Kun had no choice but to admit that Long Chen had complete control over the Pearl of Domain. Finally, he calmed himself down and started to prepare his next move. Long Kun immediately retracted the heavenly screen that was covering the Long Meng Grotto heaven. At the same time, he gathered all the energy in his body. As for Wind Dragon's dragon-shaped energy, Long Kun chose to temporarily ignore it. The next highlight of the show was definitely Long Chen. Long Chen felt the power within the Pearl of Domain. In that instant, Long Chen felt as though he had grasped the entire Long Meng Grotto heaven. This region is under my control. Looking at Long Kun's violent reaction, Long Chen smiled slightly. He knew that for Long Kun to be so flustered, it meant that Long Kun was extremely afraid of Long Chen. Long Chen suddenly gripped the Pearl of Domain. Immediately, it emitted a blinding light. At the same time, the strange energy in the entire Long Meng Grotto heaven dissipated. It was as though 2 frightening energies had suddenly swept out from the bottom of the Long Meng Grotto heaven and surged into Long Chen's body. Whoa! Long Chen's entire body was instantly supported by the resplendent energies. The Pearl of Domain in his hand spun wildly. Long Chen no longer needed to use his spirit power to forcefully suppress it. It was also able to release a power that shocked Long Chen. The energy in the origin continent was actually so ferocious. Long Chen's entire body was connected to the entire Long Meng Grotto heaven. With Long Chen as the medium, the energy from the Long Meng Grotto heaven began to accumulate and brew. It was ready to be unleashed. Long Chen took a step forward. The monstrous energy seemed to be able to split the heavens and earth apart as it heavily smashed towards Long Kun's heavenly screen. I am the Lord of the Domain. A majestic aura that seemed to belong to a sovereign was emitted at this moment. Long Chen leapt high into the air, as though he was a deity of the world. Bang! With the support of the unstoppable force from the Pearl of Domain, a dazzling and resplendent aura shot towards the sky, which Long Kun had painstakingly condensed with all his strength, smashed into the heavenly screen. Swish! The instant the two similar energies came into contact with each other, the originally indestructible heavenly screen suddenly emitted a cloud of smoke. Faintly, there seemed to be miserable cries ringing out. Time passed. In a few breaths' time, the heavenly screen gradually dissipated and turned into nothingness. Long Chen's strength could be considered a joke to Long Kun. However, when Long Chen unleashed the power of the heavenly dragon bloodline in his body, he was able to suppress Long Kun to a certain extent. This was Long Chen's first layer of protection. Secondly, Long Chen's spiritual energy was abnormally strong. At the same time, he also cultivated spiritual technique. Naturally, he was able to suppress Long Kun a second time. Most importantly, after Long Chen refined the Pearl of Domain, he possessed the same source of energy as Long Kun. Furthermore, if the two of them were to compare, Long Chen, who controlled the Pearl of Domain, would definitely have the absolute advantage. This was also the third time Long Chen was suppressing Long Kun. The three forces of suppression surged together. After Long Chen merged them together, the pressure that he was able to exert on Long Kun completely made up for the difference in strength between the two of them. At this very moment, it was as if Long Chen was bullying the weak. However, Long Kun would not be so helpless. After becoming the lord of the domain for tens of thousands of years, he had never lost control of the Pearl of Domain. Therefore, Long Kun was more familiar with the power of the Pearl of Domain than Long Chen. When Long Chen used a force that Long Kun was extremely familiar with to attack Long Kun was naturally able to use some small trick. Don't even think about it. Long Kun's cursing voice rang out from behind the shattered sky. Before his voice even landed, the force unleashed by Long Chen actually produced a trace of rebellious force. Before Long Chen could react, this rebellious force retreated and charged towards Long Chen. Long Chen did not expect that even after he had refined the Pearl of Domain, Long Kun would still be able to obtain the power of the Pearl of Domain. However, under such circumstances, even if Long Kun's attack was about to land on him, it would obviously cause him quite a bit of damage. However, Long Chen did not make any excessive movements. What Long Chen wanted to do was not to deal with Long Kun's attack, but to completely control the Pearl of Domain in his hands. Chapter 2050. Only by severing the connection between Long Kun and the Pearl of Domain would he be able to prevent such an attack from happening again. Long Chen infused his spiritual energy into the Pearl of Domain at lightning speed. Then, using the method of controlling the world, he successfully found the remaining wisp of Long Kun's consciousness within the Pearl of Domain. Shatter, exterminate. After Long Chen's spiritual energy invaded, the last wisp of Long Kun's consciousness finally disappeared completely. At this moment, the Pearl of Domain completely belonged to Long Chen. At the same time, the attack that Long Kun had released landed firmly on Long Chen's body. Bang bang! Numerous muffled sounds accompanied by the explosion of auras rang out. Before the sound had even faded, Long Chen's face suddenly turned extremely pale. The supreme power within the Pearl of Domain was much stronger than Hong Meng's power. Just by possessing Hong Meng's power alone, Long Chen, who was protected by his aura, was completely exposed in front of Long Kun. Countless dangers. A heart-wrenching pain entered his meridians and Long Chen's eyes instantly turned blood-red. Although the pain was intense, Long Chen was still able to endure it. After all, Long Chen had experienced pain that was even more intense than this. As long as he could guarantee that Long Kun would not be able to cause him such pain again, Long Chen could be at ease. "Ant, I will tear you into pieces." Perhaps sensing Long Chen's choice, Long Kun's expression turned ferocious once again. Long Chen, who no longer had any worries, naturally no longer felt any fear. Light flickered around his body. The powerful strength that had been added to his body had agglomerated into a supreme imprint at this moment. It did not give anyone any time to react. Instead, it immediately emitted a dazzling and magnificent light. Power of the domain, suppress. A steady and powerful voice rang out from Long Chen's mouth. At the same time, it was accompanied by a resolute and ferocious killing intent. Long Chen's muscles tensed up. At this moment, all the energy that could be used by Long Chen in this part of the world surged into Long Chen's body. Then, after a wave of killing intent catalyzed it, this power suddenly exploded out. Bang! Long Chen, who had already condensed into a beam of light, finally reached Long Kuen's body after accumulating a lot of power. The shattered pieces of the sky around Long Kuen, in addition to the power that Long Kuen released to protect himself, almost made it impossible for him to escape. The moment Long Chen charged over, it was completely shattered. The army was defeated like a collapsing mountain. This is impossible. At this moment, Long Kuen's voice was filled with panic. Perhaps Long Kuen had predicted that this would happen, but he had never thought that it would be so miserable. The strange energy around Long Kuen's body shattered one after another. More and more of the energy collapsed in front of Long Kuen. The entire Long Meng heavenly abode also started to gather around Long Kuen as the energy poured in. Gradually, Long Kuen's entire body Long Kuen was completely locked in the Long Meng heavenly abode. As the fragments of the sky curtain dissipated, the tremors in front of Long Chen, caused by the battle, gradually calmed down. Very quickly, Long Kuen's figure slowly appeared. However, the current Long Kuen was no longer as arrogant as before. His entire person seemed to have changed. He seemed to be slightly dispirited. His body was already covered in blood. It was as if he had turned into a blood man. This time, Long Kuen's most prided Qijin had been completely destroyed. Who exactly are you? Long Kuen was dumbfounded as he looked at Long Chen, who was controlling the Pearl of Domain and emitting a godlike aura. Shock flashed across his eyes. He had never imagined that he would be defeated by such a person. Why? Are you very surprised? Do you feel that losing to someone like me is embarrassing for you? Don't worry. Before you, there were already many people who thought this way. Long Chen forced a smile. His expression was bitterly cold. His expression was cold, and he constantly emitted a chilling aura that caused others to feel fear. Who said that I lost? Long Kuen furrowed his brows and said word by word, even if my energy is broken, I will not use the power of the origin continent. In this Hong Meng world, no matter what, I am still a true Hong Meng Tianjing Grade 9. Against a Hong Meng like you, a Hong Meng Tianjing Grade 9, I should be able to break through to the origin realm. You still don't want to give up? Long Chen shook his head. He thought to himself, previously, when we were competing purely on Hong Meng power, you were also not my match. Could it be that you have forgotten that you used your energy because you could not win against me in Hong Meng power? Hand over your life! Long Kuen suddenly roared out, as a thick ruthless aura flashed across his eyes. At this moment, he was already seriously injured. If he were to use such wild and violent primordial energy again, it would only cause his body to sustain irreversible injuries. In fact, it might even break apart. He might even lose his opportunity to advance in the future. However, at this moment, Long Kuen did not care about this. In this situation, the only thing that Long Kuen wanted to do was to kill Long Chen. Perhaps by doing this, Long Kuen would be able to alleviate some of the humiliation that he had suffered in this battle? Whoosh whoosh. The piercing sound of wind breaking could be heard. Following that roar, Long Kuen's body moved. He directly used the power of the Hong Meng power to strengthen his body, causing him to become a fierce gust of wind as he charged towards Long Chen. Kill. However, Long Kuen seemed to have overlooked something. While Long Kuen and Long Chen were fighting, Feng Long had been accumulating power at the side. Seeing that Long Kuen was already an arrow at the end of its flight, and seeing that Long Chen was no longer as imposing as before, Feng Long knew that he had waited for the best time. Therefore, the power of the Hong Meng power that he had been accumulating for a long time suddenly surged out. Before Long Kuen's attack could reach Long Qin, it heavily bombarded Long Kuen's body. Boom! A gust of wind blew past. The violent Dragon Clan's bloodline pressure was supported by Hong Meng's aura. The moment it came into contact with Long Kuen's body, it emitted an earth-shattering aura. Long Kuen's body flew backwards. His body, which was already on the verge of death, spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Bang! Long Kuen landed heavily on the shore of the Dragon Lake, stirring up a cloud of dust. The blood on Long Kuen's body dyed the entire beach red. Long Kuen forced himself to raise his head. His expression was grave as he looked at the figure that had slapped him onto the beach. Feng Long, who was dressed in white, slowly appeared beside Long Qin. He first glanced at Long Kuen, who was heavily injured and lying on the ground. After confirming that Long Kuen was no longer able to gather energy, he let out a long sigh. Chapter 2051. Who exactly are you? Wind Dragon looked at the majestic Long Qin. Some doubt involuntarily appeared between his brows. While being able to sense the heavenly dragon bloodline in his body, he was also able to see the series of strange changes that Long Qin had made. Could this not be? The Wind Dragon was not surprised. Long Qin paused for a moment. He did not know how to explain to Senior Feng Long. Hence, he could only feign civility and said, "Senior Feng Long, there are some things that I think it would be better for me to tell you through the Ice Dragon ancestor." Fine, fine. These old bones of mine have guarded the Long Meng paradise for tens of thousands of years. It is normal for me to not understand some things. Feng Long seemed to have guessed some things and did not say anything else. After that, Feng Long looked at Long Kuen, who was lying on the ground. Very quickly, a furious expression surfaced on his face as he coldly shouted, "I really did not expect that you would end up like this after hiding in my dragon tribe for tens of thousands of years. Do you accept your fate?" Humph. Long Kuen spat out a mouthful of blood and coldly snorted, ants like to attack in groups. "If not for the fact that you have more people, the Long Meng paradise would have already changed." Before he finished speaking, a Hong Meng aura appeared around Long Kuen's body. He turned around and looked at the horizon, as if he was trying to escape. "Where do you think you are going?" At this moment, the members of the Dragon Clan, who were originally suppressed by the strange energy, finally seized the opportunity. Every one of them condensed a pure Dragon Clan bloodline power and blasted it towards Long Kuen in an earth-shattering manner. Without the pressure from the strange aura, the Dragon Tribe members were finally able to unleash their full strength. As for Long Kuen, who was lying on the ground, he had become the perfect target for everyone to vent their frustrations on. After all, before today, no one would have thought that Long Kuen, whom they had thought to be the best candidate to become the leader of the Dragon Tribe, would actually be a foreigner. Furthermore, Long Kuen wanted to destroy the Long Meng Grotto Heaven and massacre the Dragon Tribe? Long Kuen, who was already heavily injured, found it even more difficult to defend against such a huge and complicated attack. After persevering for a while, Long Kuen was finally defeated by the people from the Dragon Tribe. His entire body fell onto the beach, motionless. Being able to sense the layers of Hong Meng Qi emitted from Long Kuen's body, everyone probably thought that Long Kuen was already dead. At this time, Long Mu rushed to the front and said to the Dragon clansmen he trusted, "Capture him and lock him in the valley behind the ancestral hall. Guard him strictly." Yes. The members of the Dragon Clan cupped their fists and did as they were told. The current Long Kuen's power that originated from the origin continent had already been destroyed by Long Qin. As for the Hong Meng aura that surrounded him, it had also been destroyed by the attacks of the Dragon Tribe members. Although it had not completely collapsed, it was still extremely powerful. Presumably, he would not be able to return to his former peak within a year and a half. Perhaps Long Mu did not realize it himself, but his current actions were extremely similar to that of a leader. Very quickly, Long Mu flew up and arrived beside Long Chen and Feng Long at an extremely fast speed. He first bowed to Feng Long and said, "Senior Feng Long, it's all thanks to you this time." Feng Long shook his head. His gaze involuntarily landed on the battle between Venerable Blood Corpse and the elders of the Dragon Tribe. He slowly said, "I'm only doing my part for the Dragon Tribe. Everyone in the Dragon Tribe should contribute to protecting this Long Meng paradise. Show some effort." "Many thanks for Senior Feng Long's teachings," Long Mu said respectfully. Feng Long nodded and said, "The leader of the Dragon Tribe must consider everything for the entire Dragon Tribe. I feel that you can do this well. Long Mu, do not disappoint Dao Ancestor Long Meng's expectations of you." Just as Long Mu was about to reply, Feng Long flew up and headed towards the battlefield where Venerable Blood Corpse was fighting. It seemed that Feng Long wanted to end the foreign people who were still causing trouble in the Long Meng paradise. In this way, only Long Chen, Long Mu, and Long Yuan were left on the Dragon Lake. "What exactly did you experience in there?" Long Mu asked curiously. Long Chen let out a long breath and said, "In short, it's a very complicated matter. I'll tell you slowly in the future. No matter what, I've succeeded in bringing the Ice Dragon Ancestor out. This time, you're really the benefactor of the Dragon Tribe," Long Mu said with a smile. Long Chen pursed his lips and said, "Don't say that. I'm originally a member of the Dragon Tribe." That's true, that's true." Long Mu nodded in agreement. After Feng Long arrived, Venerable Blood Corpse, who was being restrained by the elders of the Dragon Tribe, no longer had the strength to resist. As Feng Long's imposing aura descended from Hong Meng, Venerable Blood Corpse was completely turned into a pile of ashes. Of course, with Venerable Blood Corpse's departure, the elder from the Dragon Tribe that Venerable Blood Corpse was residing in naturally disappeared from the Long Meng paradise. I really didn't expect the Dragon Tribe to still have such a powerful force. Venerable Blood Demon, who was in a stalemate with the Ice Dragon Ancestor, was slightly shocked when he saw the outcome of Long Kuan and Venerable Blood Corpse. Naturally, he was defeated in the battle with the Ice Dragon Ancestor. You should have known long ago. The Ice Dragon Ancestor calmed his mind and looked at Venerable Blood Corpse in front of him. "Humph, I advise you not to be happy too early. Venerable Blood Corpse and I are just a wisp of consciousness left behind in this domain. We can't display our full strength at all. Now, the real bodies of Venerable Blood Corpse and I are outside this domain. Humph, I advise you not to be too happy. However, I'm sure that I'm your true opponent. Or perhaps you're not my opponent at all." As his voice faded, supreme energy began to gather around Venerable Blood Demon. For a moment, the energy of the heavens and earth faintly moved. "In front of my true body, you're just a bunch of ants. This time, you don't have Dao Ancestor Long Meng. I want to see how you're going to deal with this. The vast world will eventually belong to the strong. Ants like you are only fit to use your bodies as a ladder for us to ascend to the heavens." Mocking words came out from Venerable Blood Demon's mouth one after another. The energy gathered around him grew denser and denser. Bang! An intense cracking sound rang out. Venerable Blood Demon had actually chosen to self-detonate. Long Chen looked at the scene in the sky and couldn't help but become nervous. Venerable Blood Demon and Venerable Blood Corpse were two people from the Origin continent. In the current Hong Meng world, they could be said to be unrivaled. When they make a comeback, who in Hong Meng would be able to stand up and stop them? Chapter 2052. The earth-shaking battle that took place in the Long Meng heavenly abode finally came to an end after Long Kuan was captured and the deaths of the two otherworldly sovereigns. The battle this time around had caused a huge uproar in the Long Meng utopia, which had been peaceful for tens of thousands of years. Ice Dragon, who had awakened from his hibernation, and Wind Dragon, who had temporarily entered, stabilized the situation and began to plan the next step for the dragon tribe. All the members of the dragon tribe understood that they could no longer stay in the Long Meng Utopia and wait for their death. Venerable Blood Corpse and Venerable Blood Demon were still in the Long Meng Polar Land. Once they recovered their strength, they would definitely come to cause trouble for the Long Meng Utopia. Instead of waiting for the unknown, they might as well take the initiative to attack. However, before they attacked, the dragon tribe first had to confirm one thing, which was who would become the tribe leader. Now that Long Kuan, who was the only one who could compete with Long Mu for the position, had ended up in such a state, with the support of Ice Dragon and the other elders, Long Mu was decided to become the next tribe leader. Once Long Mu's strength reached the Hong Meng Tianjing, the tribe leader position would officially belong to Long Mu. At that time, the dragon tribe would leave the Long Meng Utopia and return to the Long Meng Polar Land that they had left for tens of thousands of years. The dragon tribe placed great importance on this matter. Therefore, Long Mu, who had become the tribe leader, immediately went into seclusion in order to break through to the 9th level of the Hong Meng Tianjing as soon as possible. The dragon tribe also began to send people to the Long Meng Polar Land to find out about the current situation in the Long Meng Polar Land in advance. They had to be fully prepared for the dragon tribe's return to the Long Meng Polar Land in the future. The Wind Dragon returned to the Long Meng Utopia and continued to quietly guard it. Ice Dragon Ancestor had taken control of the dragon tribe during this period of time, but he did not manage much. Other than the atmosphere in the dragon tribe being a little more tense than usual, it was still relatively normal. This time, it was all thanks to Long Chen's help that the Ice Dragon Ancestor was able to successfully awaken. If it wasn't for Long Chen, the Ice Dragon Ancestor might have still hesitated there for a few years. There were two views on Long Kuan, who had been captured by the dragon tribe. The first view was that they wanted to end Long Kuan as soon as possible to prevent any unnecessary incidents that might cause great damage to the dragon tribe. The Long Kuan, but Long Kuan's Long Mu, had been captured by Long Kuan. Was Long Kuan. However, ever since Long Kuan had been captured, he had not spoken a single word. As such, the Ice Dragon Ancestor had set down a rule. If Long Kuan was still as stubborn as before after a few days, they would prepare the first method. In this battle, Long Chen, who had made great contributions to the Dragon Clan, had also been completely recognized by the Dragon Clan. Moreover, the Dragon Clan's bloodline that Long Chen possessed was the Heavenly Dragon bloodline, which had not appeared in the past 10,000 years. This made everyone in the Dragon Clan even more amazed. Because of this, while Long Chen was recuperating in the Long Meng Utopia, Long Chen could clearly feel the grateful gazes of the Dragon tribe members around him. The Dragon tribe was the strongest tribe in Hong Meng. It was not easy to make the Dragon tribe members look at someone in a different light, and Long Chen had done it. It was not just the ordinary Dragon tribe members. Even the elders of the Dragon tribe were extremely respectful to Long Chen. During the battle that day, Long Chen had shaken Long Kuan by himself and defeated him with the strength of the Hong Meng Yuan Jie. This scene was really unforgettable. Thinking about how the elders of the Dragon tribe had to rely on their advantage in numbers to hold back Venerable Blood Corpse, the elders of the Dragon tribe could not help but feel ashamed when they compared the two sides. Gradually, as the matters in the Dragon tribe settled down, the atmosphere in the Dragon tribe also became gentler. Long Mu began his closed-door cultivation. Many elders of the Dragon tribe left the Long Meng Utopia and led their people to explore the mysteries of the Long Meng Polar region. Those who remained in the Long Meng Utopia were mostly those who were close to breaking through to the next realm or those who had not fully recovered from their injuries. In short, the entire Dragon tribe had begun to move towards a new era. Long Chen saw this change and often sighed. This was how the Dragon tribe should be like in Long Chen's impression. If a battle like the previous one was staged, the dragon tribe would be able to deal with it calmly even without Long Chen's help. After the ice dragon ancestor brought some healing elixirs for Long Chen's injuries were finally completely healed. Moreover, the benefits that Long Chen gained from this battle were also worth celebrating. First of all, Long Chen had successfully refined the domain pearl. Now, he could use the power of the domain pearl as he wished. Thus, Long Chen truly felt the mysteries of the origin mainland. Even the source of power that they cultivated was so much stronger than Hong Meng. How could the origin mainland not be strong? What surprised Long Chen the most was that after refining the domain pearl, Long Chen could really sense every movement in the Long Meng Utopia. Just as Long Kuan had said, the Long Meng Utopia, or rather the domain, belonged to the domain lord. And Long Chen possessed the domain pearl. In a sense, Long Chen had become the domain lord of this domain. However, Long Chen did not tell anyone about this. If the Dragon Clan were to find out about this, it would most likely lead to some unnecessary trouble. On the shore of the Dragon Lake, which seemed to have been reconstructed, Long Chen sat cross-legged on the beach in the distance. He slowly absorbed the Hong Meng aura from the Dragon Lake. Then, through the circulation of his meridians, he gradually absorbed the Hong Meng aura and turned it into his own. Occasionally, some members of the dragon tribe would pass by. Most of them did not want to disturb Long Chen, but their gazes towards Long Chen were filled with respect. The current Long Chen was already on the verge of a breakthrough. At the peak of Hong Meng Yuanjie level 9, Long Chen was only one step away from reaching Hong Meng Tianjing. Ever since Long Chen came to the Long Meng polar region, he had been ridiculed countless times because his cultivation level was at Hong Meng Yuanjie. Now, Long Chen was about to break away from Hong Meng Yuanjie and advance to Hong Meng Tianjing. Chapter 2053. Even though there was a relatively strong Hong Meng aura next to the Dragon Lake, there was still a big gap between it and the Hong Meng spiritual energy that Long Chen had experienced. For example, the Demon Phoenix tribal gathering place, where the Hong Meng aura was the best place for seclusion. However, at this time, Long Chen could not be too obsessed with these external things. According to the news brought by Long Yuan, Long Mu had brought many spirit treasures with him when he went into seclusion this time. There were also several Dragon Clan elders protecting him. He would be able to advance successfully. Therefore, before this, Long Chen was not suitable to leave the Long Meng paradise. Long Mu had specially come once before he went into seclusion. He had already made an appointment with Long Chen. When he came out of seclusion, the few of them would make a trip to the Lin Meng polar region. Dao God Tower, Zhuziyin. Even if there was still a glimmer of hope, Long Chen was unwilling to give up. Breaking through to the Hong Meng Tianjing required one to condense their domain into a golden firmament core, so that the countless Hong Meng aura gathered in the domain would all return to one's body. The process sounded simple and clear, but only people like Long Chen who were close to breaking through knew how difficult it was to complete it. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many people who could only wander around the Hong Meng Yuanjie for their entire lives. The road ahead is long. Long Chen couldn't help but sigh softly. Master, what's wrong? Before Long Chen's voice fell, a familiar voice came from behind him. Long Chen turned around and saw Long Yuan, who couldn't be more familiar with him. Why are you here? Shouldn't you be cultivating at this time? Long Chen frowned and asked. In the current Dragon Clan, practically all the clansmen who were close to breaking through had already entered secluded cultivation, one after another, waiting for the opportunity to break through. The clansmen who successfully broke through left the Long Meng paradise and headed to the Long Meng polar region to investigate. Long Yuan, who was about to advance to the 6th stage of Hong Meng Tianjing, stayed behind and prepared to cultivate in seclusion. Long Yuan scratched his head and said, I originally planned to go into seclusion, but at this time, The Ice Dragon Ancestor came to find me and said that he had something to tell you. What is it? Long Chen was curious. Ice Dragon Ancestor told me to tell you what to pay attention to when advancing to Hongmeng Tianjing. In addition, he also said that he would let you cultivate in seclusion at the bottom of the Dragon Lake. He would personally take care of a portion of your mind and monitor your movements at all times, Yuan said slowly. Long Chen smiled and said, "There's no need for that. Long Mu has already told me a lot about the advancement before he went into seclusion. I can handle it myself." Long Yuan nodded and said, "This is always an additional layer of protection. Moreover, the Ice Dragon Ancestor personally being half a protector for you is indeed very beneficial. Master, don't decline too much. You've made such a great contribution to our Dragon Clan before, take something good. It's only right for you to be alone." Hearing this, Long Chen was a little helpless. He nodded and said, Okay, I'll listen to you. After I enter the Dragon Lake, I'll relax my mind." Long Yuan asked, "Master, when do you plan to start cultivating in seclusion?" "Right now, I already feel a trace of an opportunity to advance. If time permits, I think it's better to hurry." Long Chen thought for a moment and said slowly, "I knew Master would say that." Long Yuan smiled and said, "How about this, Master? I'll take you to the elders guarding the lake. They just went to check the situation a few days ago, so I think they know the best place to go. Let's go and ask them first, and then let them guide you into the Dragon Lake." Long Chen nodded and naturally agreed with Long Yuan's suggestion. Whether or not he could successfully advance to Hongmeng Tianjing would be revealed from now on. Under the lead of Long Yuan, the two did not delay and quickly rushed to the other side of the Dragon Lake. Here, Long Chen saw several elders of the Dragon Clan that he had seen that day, and Elder Yenlong was here. Seeing Long Chen's arrival, these elders had a tacit understanding. They probably knew Long Chen's intention in advance, so they did not say anything. Elder Yenlong walked forward and said to Long Chen, "Little friend Long Chen, although the Dragon Lake has experienced a great deal of destruction this time, the Dragon Lake is still intact. After some destruction, the foundation of the formation is still present. Currently, the Dragon Lake has already stabilized under our efforts. There will definitely not be any more unexpected changes. If you wish to train here, it is really a good idea." "This time, I really have to thank Elder," Long Chen replied respectfully. Elder Yenlong waved his hand and said, "Don't mention it. Since you have already controlled your own heavenly dragon true body, in terms of bloodline, you already belong to the Dragon Clan. Naturally, you are also a member of the Dragon Clan. We will help you. It's only right and proper." Since Elder Yenlong had said so, Long Chen did not need to say anything more. He made some preparations and planned to immediately head to the bottom of the Dragon Lake to cultivate in seclusion. "May I know where Ancestor Ice Dragon is now?" Long Chen suddenly asked. Elder Yenlong nodded and said, "The Ice Dragon Ancestor is protecting the Dragon Tomb and helping it advance to the 9th level of the Hongmeng Heavenly Realm. However, you don't have to worry about anything. The Ice Dragon Ancestor has told us that he will give you a strand of his power after you enter the Dragon Lake. I'll take good care of you and strive to help you successfully advance to the primordial firmament realm." "Long Mu is also at the bottom of the Dragon Lake?" Long Chen suddenly asked. "The Dragon Lake is the place where the Hongmeng aura is the strongest in the Dragon Mist Paradise. Long Mu is naturally here. However, to prevent any accidents, we will separate the two of you this time. We will try our best not to disturb each other," Elder Yenlong said slowly. All right. Long Chen nodded with a smile. "Since you are prepared, I will lead you into the Dragon Lake." As soon as Elder Yenlong finished speaking, he gathered the energy around him and released it on the Dragon Lake. It formed a wave. Above the Dragon Lake, there was a Hongmeng Chi wall that looked like a tunnel. When Long Chen saw this, he he did not hesitate and immediately jumped into the tunnel. Seeing this, Elder Yen Long withdrew the energy around him and slowly exhaled. Then, he waved his hand at the surrounding members of the dragon tribe. The crowd immediately dispersed and left. Long Yuan clenched his fists and prayed secretly. After going around in circles and wandering along the tunnel, Long Chun finally arrived at the bottom of the dragon lake. Feeling the rich Hong Meng aura around him, Long Chun knew that his path to advancement had begun. Chapter 2054. At the bottom of the dragon lake, Long Chun felt the rich Hong Meng aura around him. The meridians in his body were absorbing the energy from the dragon lake. The most fundamental method of cultivation was to let the Hong Meng aura go deep into the meridians and complete a large circulation in the body. Long Chun now had enough Hong Meng aura in his body. Once he completed this step, he would be able to successfully advance to Hong Meng Tianjing. However, as he neared the breakthrough, every time Long Chun absorbed the energy, it would cause his territory to tremble. Long Chun had already released his territory. Although Long Chun was still at the bottom of the dragon lake, in a sense, Long Chun should be considered to be in the territory. The first step to advancing to Hong Meng Tianjing was to condense one's territory into the firmament gold pill. Obviously, this process was not going to be easy. Before this, Long Chun had tried several times, but all of them ended in failure. Long Chen's territory had been with his for a long time. As Long Chen's strength increased, his territory also became stronger. When Long Chen was still in the Hong Meng consolidation realm, Long Chen already knew that the territory of Hong Meng Yuanjie was related to the level of strength to advance to Hong Meng Tianjing in the future. Therefore, Long Chen had made sufficient preparations in this regard. Along the way, Long Chen had never forgotten this principle. It could be said that he was doing his best for his territory. Therefore, in such an important situation, Long Chen had to have 100% control over his territory. The territory that he had spent so much effort to condense was now destroyed. Then, he would extract the essence from the ruins and condense it into the firmament gold pill. Long Chen stabilized all the Hong Meng aura in his body. When the meridians in his body were operating normally, he began another attempt. He added his Hong Meng power to the territory and released this power through the territory. In an instant, the entire territory trembled again. Long Chen also felt an extremely oppressive territory power. Not long after the territory power suppressed Long Chen felt that his spirit was being invaded. In a trance, Long Chen seemed to have gone to another world. In the vast chaos, Long Chen's consciousness gradually recovered. The surroundings were silent, as if there was no one around. Long Chen raised his hand and waved it in front of his eyes. Only then did he realize that he had entered his territory with the power of his spirit. Ever since he had been promoted to the Hong Meng Yuanjie, Long Chen could not even remember how long it had been since he had last entered his territory. When Long Chen was still at the Hong Meng consolidation realm, he was always attacked by the territory power of those Hong Meng Yuanjie experts. This really made Long Chen suffer. When Long Chen was promoted to the Hong Meng Yuanjie and had his own territory, he realized that in the battle between the Hong Meng Yuanjie and the Hong Meng Yuanjie, they did not even bother to use their territory. This was because if one side used their territory, the other side would naturally use their own territory immediately. This way, the battle situation would not be alleviated. If he didn't get any relief, it might even cause him to be at a disadvantage. Therefore, Long Chen had almost forgotten what a territory looked like. Although he still did not know how he had entered this territory with the power of his spirit, Long Chen faintly felt that this matter was greatly related to his road of promotion. Why was it that below the Hong Meng Tianjing stage, one could only rely on the strength of the Hong Meng spirit to make a breakthrough? Why was it that when one reached the Hong Meng Tianjing stage, one needed the assistance of the power of the spirit to advance in every stage? When these questions flashed across Long Chen's mind, Long Chen knew that he must have something to do if he was able to enter this territory with the power of his spirit. Long Chen finally stabilized himself in the territory with great difficulty. The power of the territory around him suddenly expanded. Now, Long Chen could not control the territory at all. The changes in the territory were also beyond Long Chen's control. The power of the territory condensed and directly pressed in from all directions. Its purpose was obvious. It was targeting Long Chen. It could be said that Long Chen, who had just arrived, could not react in time. He was immediately surrounded by the power of the territory. Without any explanation, the power of the territory began to squeeze Long Chen. Although it was only his spirit that was being squeezed, the pain was still very obvious. Long Chen's body trembled. The pain of the spirit was even more intense than the pain of the flesh. Every time the power of the territory squeezed him, he felt as if his spirit was about to be crushed. There was no mercy at all. The power of the territory was very strong, and Long Chen's spirit was extremely weak. Long Chen exerted his spirit to resist the power of the territory. With great difficulty, he managed to loosen the pressure a little. However, before he could rest for a moment, Long Chen immediately sensed that another power of the territory was coming at him. It's coming. This time, Long Chen would not sit still and wait for his death. Long Chen fiercely circulated the aura around his body. With a proud posture, he immediately jumped away from the power of the territory that was surrounding him. He then pulled himself away, barely escaping from the restraint of the first wave of power of the territory. Swoosh, swoosh. Before Long Chen could rejoice, the second wave of power of the territory swept over. Moreover, since Long Chen was currently inside the territory, the speed of the power of the territory could be said to be completely unreasonable. Even with Long Chen's speed, he was still unable to break free from the bombardment of the territory. A muffled sound rang out. Long Chen's body was immediately caught up by the second wave of power of the territory and slammed heavily on his body. Long Chen's spirit was immediately slapped to a corner of the territory. The intense pain that was related to the spirit immediately made it difficult for Long Chen to react. However, all of this was not over. The powerful territory gathered again, not giving Long Chen any time to think. It was as if there was some conflict between the territory and Long Chen's spirit. Every time the territory surged, it would display its strongest side. It now gave Long Chen's spirit power. Wave after wave of pressure, accompanied by the bombardment of the territory, greeted Long Chen's spirit. The piercing pain immediately reverberated within the territory. At first, Long Chen's spirit still wanted to struggle, but as the force grew stronger, Long Chen also gave up on this futile struggle. Chapter 2055. The bombardment of the domain lasted for a long time before it finally dissipated. After the bombardment had completely dissipated from Long Chen's body, Long Chen did not react for a long time. It was as if his body had gotten used to the stimulation of pain and was not used to the sudden disappearance of the domain. After about half an hour, the spirit body in the domain finally regained consciousness. Long Chen slowly climbed to his feet with an extremely haggard face. The spirit power around his body was extremely unstable, and his entire spirit body seemed to be on the verge of shattering. At this moment, Long Chen finally understood that it was not easy to condense the domain into a golden firmament pill. The bombardment of the domain alone had already made Long Chen suffer greatly. If Long Chen used his spirit power to support the entire domain, how powerful would the bombardment of the domain be? Long Chen did not dare to imagine this. Long Chen could not help but twitch when he felt the pain surrounding his body dissipate. His spirit body had actually become a little stronger after being bombarded by the power of the domain? This discovery immediately surprised Long Chen. No matter how difficult the process of condensing the domain into a golden firmament pill was, if he could strengthen his spirit power through the bombardment of the domain, it seemed to be a good thing. This was a good thing. Whoosh whoosh. Just as this thought flashed across Long Chen's mind, Long Chen suddenly felt that the suppression of the domain seemed to have become stronger than before. Long Chen turned around and looked around. Only then did he realize that the power of the territory in the territory had gathered once again. It was charging toward Long Chen. Is this the test I need to go through to advance? Looking at this scene, Long Chen steadied his mind and let out a long breath. He slowly released a wisp of his spirit power, intending to meet the domain power head-on. For Long Chen, who had experienced the pain of the cloud layer and the reconstruction of his muscles and bones, this little bit of spirit pain was still bearable. Whoosh whoosh. This time, Long Chen did not react as he did before. Instead, he took the initiative to attack with lightning-like speed. He used his spirit power to meet the domain power head-on. The rich and violent domain strength was extremely powerful when unleashed within the domain's strength. It could be said that the domain strength was the domain strength itself. Other powers would pale in comparison within the domain's strength. After entering the domain as a spirit body, Long Chen finally had a better understanding of the domain. As long as he was in the domain, the Hong Meng force he possessed before would disappear the moment he entered it. The strength of one's spirit determined how long one could last in this domain. In the past, when Long Chen entered the domain, he entered it with a complete physical body. With the support of the Hong Meng force, there was naturally no difference. However, the rules of the domain had not changed. Since Long Chen had entered the domain as a spirit body, this time, he had to use his spirit power to conquer the domain, so that the domain could condense into a golden firmament pill under his influence. Long Chen naturally understood the hardships he had to pay. However, Long Chen also knew very well that in the vast world, there was no power that could be obtained out of thin air. If one wanted to obtain something, they had to pay something first. Otherwise, the Hong Meng Tianjing experts in the world would not be so rare. The domain power poured down like a flood. The spirit power that surrounded Long Chen had long been shattered and dissipated. Long Chen's spirit body was still suffering from the incomparably strong domain power, just like at the beginning. The domain power bombarded him. However, this time, Long Chen did not lose consciousness because of the strength of the domain power. Instead, through the protection of some mysterious power, he was able to take a breather from the endless domain bombardment. Then, he was able to maximize his strength. Through the bombardment of these domains, he could feed his own spiritual energy, making his spiritual energy stronger and stronger. Whoosh whoosh. Wave after wave of domain power bombarded Long Chen's spirit body with incomparable precision. Although there was no trace of blood, the pain that Long Chen endured was no less than the pain of his physical body being torn apart. His spirit power was dissipating little by little. The strength that supported Long Chen's consciousness was becoming increasingly difficult to maintain. However, Long Chen had no intention of giving up. Although his spirit body looked extremely haggard and weak, a little investigation revealed that this spirit body had no intention of collapsing. Although the domain power around the spirit body was constantly radiating a power that could destroy the world, the spirit body still stubbornly held on. It did not collapse. The bombardment of the domain power continued for a very long time. Long Chen could only sense the passage of time, but as for how much time had passed, Long Chen himself had no idea. Gradually, when the bombardment of the domain power began to weaken, the spirit body that was emitting a twilight glow finally glowed with vitality. Long Chen's spirit body began to twitch, directly announcing that Long Chen had recovered. After this period of tempering, Long Chen's spirit power had made a qualitative leap. Long Chen wanted to shout loudly and release the power that had been suppressed during this period of time, but Long Chen could not do it. Long Chen understood that in this domain, only when the power of his spirit could defeat the power of his domain would he be able to truly shout out loud. If Long Chen had slacked off even a little before this, perhaps he would have had to start all over again. Long Chen really did not want to experience the same pain a second time. When the domain power gradually dissipated and the familiar feeling of control returned to his spirit power, Long Chen understood that his spirit body had been completely tempered. What Long Chen needed to do next was to use his spirit power to suppress the domain power in this domain. Then, he would force the entire domain to be completely under Long Chen's control. Only then could Long Chen begin to condense the firmament gold core. Chapter 2056. Perhaps Long Chen felt a sense of mission, but Long Chen always felt that if he could not successfully advance to the Hong Meng Tianjing this time, he would always feel guilty towards someone. Amidst the pain, Long Chen was gratified that under the constant tempering of the domain power, Long Chen's spirit power was constantly growing stronger. Although this kind of enhancement was very slow, it was much better than not having a trace of improvement at all. Phew! Long Chen stretched his spirit power and turned to look at the boundless domain power. Suddenly, some scenes of his past flashed through his mind. Thinking of himself, thinking of his weak self, Long Chen was immediately filled with boundless fighting spirit. Long Chen knew that if he, who was so inconspicuous back then, could achieve what he had today, then how could a mere gold firmament core trap him? He refused to accept it. Long Chen stood up straight and felt the domain power condensing around him once again. Long Chen knew that the next domain power bombardment would come soon. But this time, Long Chen was no longer afraid. Long Chen believed that with his increasingly powerful spirit power, he would definitely be able to turn the tables in this bombardment. Since he had such determination, what Long Chen had to deal with next was naturally the heavy level of pain. As the domain power bombarded him, Long Chen used the last of his spirit power to resist it. In this vast domain, Long Chen was like a cocoon. Although he had to endure too much pain and torture for the time being, Long Chen always believed that there would be a day when he would break out of his cocoon and become a butterfly. Several fierce and aggressive domain power spontaneously condensed in this domain. In a moment, it completely bombarded Long Chen's spirit body. Sounds of shattering rang out one after another. The domain power and the spirit power collided. In this domain, who knew how many layers of thunderbolts were triggered? After a series of explosions, there was a new round of power. It did not dissipate, and there was no end in sight. Gradually, Long Chen was able to control his spirit body to move a few steps under the bombardment of the domain power. It was a resolute figure, an indomitable figure. The domain power continuously pierced Long Chen's body. The support of the power stimulated layers of heat waves, continuously roasting Long Chen's spirit. However, what was surprising was that even when such a huge pressure fell on Long Chen's spirit body, Long Chen did not seem to feel any pain. His spirit body continued to move forward towards the boundless domain power. Moving forward little by little, the domain power gradually approached the source of the domain. In Long Chen's opinion, the attack that was strong enough to destroy his spirit body seemed incomparably weak now. It could even be said that Long Chen was mocking it. In the domain, there was no division of heaven and earth. Frankly speaking, a person in the domain was a point of nothingness, and the source of the domain was a singularity. When one was close to the singularity, one could truly control a domain. Long Chen moved closer little by little. The stubbornness in his eyes became more and more intense. He felt the intense and irreversible power around him. Compared to the power that Long Chen had to endure at the beginning, it was hundreds and thousands of times stronger. However, even such power could not do any harm to Long Chen. It could only hurt him. This was the most powerful evidence that Long Chen's strength had increased. Everything that Long Chen had experienced during this period was gradually becoming Long Chen's most precious wealth. This wealth could not be taken away by others, and Long Chen would not give it to him. Is this the best you can do? At this time, Long Chen even suspected that the domain power in the domain had been released to the extreme. If not, it proved that Long Chen's spirit strength could be strengthened again. Long Chen was very clear about one thing. That was, the spirit strength was crucial to the Hong Meng Tianjing expert. It could even be said that in Hong Meng Tianjing, the Hong Meng strength alone could not determine too much of one's strength. The competition of the spirit strength was the most important. Only when the spirit strength was improved could the realm of the Hong Meng Tianjing experts be enhanced. Long Chen was very clear about this point from the Dragon Python clan leader. Step by step, Long Chen approached the singularity. He felt the incomparably intense domain power again and again. Gradually, Long Chen's control over the singularity became greater and greater. When Long Chen's spirit body finally broke through the encirclement and came to the side of the singularity, Long Chen also felt the most intense domain power attack. At this time, Long Chen smiled. Then, he stretched out his hand and slowly placed it on the seemingly invisible singularity. Then, he gently clenched his fist. Boom! The domain power in the domain disappeared at this moment, and the explosive force that swept out also completely stopped. It was as if there was an irreversible and powerful force that controlled the entire domain. Whoosh! The domain power around the singularity glowed violently. However, the moment it appeared, it was suppressed by an even more powerful spirit strength. It could only collapse into the singularity in an extremely unwilling posture. Long Chen's spirit strength was released from his body. Long Chen steadied his mind. Holding the singularity in his hand, Long Chen finally felt the domain power. In other words, it was the power of the Elysium Gold Core. Hong Meng Tianjing was close at hand. This kind of power made Long Chen somewhat unable to stop himself. It allowed the singularity to absorb all the power in the domain and then condense it into the Elysium Gold Core. Now is the time. Long Chen poured the last strand of spirit strength into the singularity. In less than an instant, the domain power of the Justice Square poured out. Long Chen's spirit body suddenly erupted with an incomparably violent and destructive force. As the singularity trembled, the domain was about to collapse. Clear cracks appeared one after another. Long Chen's mind returned to one. Bang! The domain power violently condensed at this moment, and then, in an irreversible manner, it entered the singularity in Long Chen's hand. Withstanding this kind of power, Long Chen felt as if he was holding a part of the world. In the next moment, the embryonic form of the gold core finally appeared in Long Chen's hand. Specks of golden light flowed out from between his fingers. His spirit strength seized this moment and directly penetrated it, firmly controlling the Elysium Gold Core. Hong Meng Tianjing. Chapter 2057. After swimming out from the bottom of the Dragon Lake, Long Chen couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. Looking at the familiar scenery around the Dragon Lake, Long Chen seemed to be intoxicated. No matter what, the environment here was much better than in his original domain. Being in the domain, Long Chen didn't know how much time had passed. Therefore, when Long Chen finally came out from the bottom of the Dragon Lake, he was a little absent-minded for a moment. You're finally out. If it wasn't for the Ice Dragon Ancestor's instructions, I really wouldn't have been able to resist looking for you. Suddenly, a familiar voice entered Long Chen's ears. Long Chen quickly turned around and saw that Long Mu was rushing towards him from Long Yuan. Master! Long Yuan couldn't help but be overjoyed when he saw Long Chen. When Long Mu approached Long Chen, he quickly released a wisp of aura and added it to Long Chen's body without any explanation. I knew it would succeed. Obviously, Long Mu already knew that Long Chen had advanced to Hong Meng Tianjing. Long Yuan couldn't help but be overjoyed. How long have I been in seclusion this time? Why have you all come out? Long Chen asked curiously. Before Long Chen went into seclusion, Long Yuan said that he had also reached an opportunity to advance his strength. Therefore, after Long Chen went into seclusion, he would also find a place to start breaking through. Now, seeing Long Mu and Long Yuan appear together, Long Chen really couldn't react. Long Yuan shook his head and said, "Master, this seclusion lasted for a month. Long Mu already came out half a month ago." A month? So long? Long Chen was a little shocked. When he appeared in the domain as a spirit, he didn't feel that a month had passed at all. Long Mu quickly waved his hand and said, "Don't think too much. It takes a long time to advance to Hong Meng Tianjing. Back then, even when I recovered my cultivation, it took about 10 days. Long Yuan, how long did it take?" Long Yuan replied, "It was also more than a month." Hearing this, Long Chen felt a little better. He just didn't know how long it took for the other Hong Meng Tianjing experts to pass the last stage. "Little friend Long Chen, you've come out." At this time, a respectful voice came from behind Long Chen and the other two. Long Chen turned around and saw that it was Elder Yen Long who had sent him to the bottom of the Dragon Lake. Long Chen hurriedly bowed respectfully and said, "Thank you for your concern, Elder Yen Long. I have been in seclusion at the bottom of the Dragon Lake and have used up a lot of resources. I really shouldn't have disturbed you." Elder Yen Long smiled and said, "Don't say that. The Dragon Lake is meant to provide help to the Dragon Clan. This time, it can be used as a place for seclusion to advance to Hong Meng Tianjing. It's just right. Thank you for your concern, Elder. I can't thank you enough." Long Chen clasped his hands and said. Elder Yen Long nodded. Then, Elder Yen Long released a wisp of his mind and approached Long Chen at lightning speed. He immediately sensed the changes in Long Chen's cultivation realm and nodded with a smile. It has indeed taken a long time to reach the 9th level of the Hong Meng Firmament Realm, but Ancestor Ice Dragon told us in advance that our young friend Long Chen's spirit power is a little special. During the breakthrough, you can only rely on your own efforts to fight for the last step. We can only rely on our own efforts. We didn't help you, but fortunately, since you can complete the last step with your own strength, the firmament gold core you condense will be harder than ours. Long Chen did not understand what Elder Yen Long was talking about. However, he thought that since Elder Yen Long was so concerned about him, there should not be many mistakes in his advancement this time. "It's related to my own realm. Naturally, I can't be careless," Long Chen said slowly. Elder Yen Long nodded and said, "That's right. All in all, it's a great thing to be able to advance successfully. Since you just came out of seclusion, you must have lost a lot of Yuan Qi. I think we should let Long Mu take you there for the time being. After a few days of recuperation, we will plan the next step." Long Mu nodded to Elder Yen Long and immediately looked at Long Chen, saying, "Elder Yen Long is right. You don't look very good. I'll take you to rest first. As for other things, we'll talk about them after you've recovered." "All right." Long Chen thought about it and agreed. Although his spirit power had defeated the domain in the end, it had caused Long Chen to lose too much of his strength. Moreover, condensing the firmament gold core was even more serious. The current Long Chen didn't have much strength to speak of. In the next few days, Long Chen first slept soundly. Then, after Long Chen recovered 70% of his strength, he went to the Dragon Lake again. On one hand, he wanted to stabilize his strength after advancing to Hong Meng Tianjing. On the other hand, Long Chen also wanted to have a better control of his spirit power. Starting from the Hong Meng vast heaven realm, the advancement of each small realm was inextricably linked to the strength of one's spirit. It could even be said that at this realm, the Hong Meng energy could no longer interfere with the strength of one's realm and could even reflect the strength of one's realm. The weak point was the strength of the spirit power. The stronger the spirit power, the stronger the realm. The improvement of the spirit power also meant the improvement of the realm of the Hong Meng Tianjing expert. Therefore, at this stage, the difference between a Hong Meng Tianjing Stage 2 expert and a Hong Meng Tianjing Stage 1 expert was like a chasm. It was not something to be trifled with. Now, Long Chun was able to control the heavenly dragon real body at will. The consciousness of the heavenly dragon real body had also been completely conquered by Long Chen's spirit power. They had become one. This was the strength that a Hong Meng Tianjing expert should have. In the past few days, Long Mu had taught Long Chen some techniques from the Dragon Clan that were suitable for the Hong Meng Tianjing experts to practice. Among them was the thunder from the ninth heaven that Long Chen had seen many times. There were also several techniques that were suitable for a weapon to use. The fighting techniques were some rare skills. There was no doubt that after Long Chen had mastered these techniques, the strength that Long Chen could display in future battles would become more and more powerful. It was unknown how long Long Chen had been cultivating, but he was completely immersed in his mind, and his consciousness was all added to the heavenly dragon real body. When someone came to his side, Long Chen didn't notice at all. Chapter 2058. Fortunately, the newcomers weren't bad people. When Long Chen came back to his senses, he saw Long Mu and Long Yuan with grave expressions. What's wrong? Long Chen sensed that something was wrong. Long Mu let out a long sigh and said, "A few clansmen returned from the Long Meng Utopia today. They brought some news about Jian Shisan." "What news?" Long Chen hurriedly asked. Before Long Chen came to the Long Meng Utopia, Jian Shisan happened to be in closed-door training. Now that Jian Shisan had suddenly sent news over a month ago, something was wrong. Long Mu shook his head and said, "The clansmen don't know what happened, but Jian Shisan sent news that you must return to the Heavenly Sun Mountain as soon as possible no matter what. He seems to have learned something about the Lin Meng Polar Region." Lin Meng Polar Region? When Long Chen heard this name, he immediately thought of Zhu Ziyin, who was the young tower master of the Lin Meng Polar Region Divine Pagoda. Long Mu nodded and said, "That's right, it's the Lin Meng Polar Region. It shouldn't be much different from what you guessed. Jian Shisan must have learned about your other disciple, Zhu Ziyin. That's why he's so anxious." Long Chen noticed that Long Mu's expression was a little helpless when he spoke. After pondering for a moment, Long Chen understood and said, "What plans does the Dragon Clan have next?" Long Mu let out a long sigh and said, "Over the past month, many clansmen have already gone to the Long Meng Polar Region. Although it caused quite a commotion, the demon race in the Long Meng Polar Region has basically confirmed that the Dragon Clan has returned. The clansmen have also chosen a suitable place for the Dragon Clan to relocate. They will begin the relocation in a few days." Long Chen knew that this was a matter of life and death for the entire Dragon Clan. Long Mu, who had just become the Dragon Clan's patriarch, definitely needed Long Chen's help at this time. After all, no matter what, Long Chen was someone that Long Mu could completely trust. However, Long Chen couldn't ignore the news from Lin Meng's polar region. After all, Zhu Ziyin was his disciple. Long Chen was really curious about what had happened. This seemed to be a dilemma. Long Yuan was also in a difficult position. After a long silence, Long Chen raised his head and said, "How about this? Let's leave the Dragon Meng Grotto Heaven first. I'll find Jian Shisan and ask about the situation before we make a decision. What do you think?" After thinking about it, this seemed to be the most appropriate way to go about it. Long Mu nodded and said, "All right, I'll go with you to Heavenly Sun Mountain first." Just like that, Long Chen, Long Mu, and Long Yuan decisively left the Dragon Meng Grotto Heaven and rushed to Heavenly Sun Mountain in Long Meng's polar region. Today, Long Chen still had the strength of Hong Meng Tianjing. He was much stronger than before when he came to Long Meng's polar region. In terms of flying, he was even more proficient. After bidding farewell to Senior Wind Dragon, who was guarding the Dragon Meng Grotto Heaven, Long Chun and the other two flew quickly. After a while, they saw the tracks of Heavenly Sun Mountain. When Long Chun approached Heavenly Sun Mountain, he naturally didn't conceal his Hong Meng aura. Therefore, Jian Shisan, who was on Heavenly Sun Mountain, immediately sensed this aura. He immediately jumped out of the mountain and into the air to welcome Long Chun. When he saw the familiar figure holding a sword appear again, Long Chun smiled slightly. It was another meeting between master and disciple. However, this time it was obvious that they weren't as excited as before. Their expressions were exceptionally nervous. After greeting each other, Jian Shisan, Long Chun, and the other two landed in a wooden house on Heavenly Sun Mountain. Long Chun was naturally anxious. He immediately went straight to the point and asked, 13th Prince, what exactly did you find out? Jian Shisan roughly guessed that Long Chun would have such an intense reaction. He said, it's like this. Master, the reason why I called you back in such a hurry is that I have obtained some rather accurate information. Tell me about it. Long Chun's face was solemn. Jian Shisan nodded and said, it's like this. Some time ago, 3 cultivators from the Lin Meng polar region came here through the space array. I think they came here for the demonic beast's inner core. At first, they were like other human clan cultivators who came to the Long Meng polar region. Sometimes, they were able to kill some lone Hong Meng Yuan Jie demonic beasts, and even Hong Meng Tian Jing demonic beasts. This was already considered a very good harvest. However, later on, the 3 of them became bolder and bolder. They actually provoked a Hong Meng Tian Jing expert from the Dragon Elephant tribe. Although they were also Hong Meng Tian Jing experts, they were naturally not enough compared to the Dragon Elephant expert. Therefore, the 3 of them could only flee. I think you have already guessed that the 3 of them fled to Heavenly Sun Mountain. When they saw that I was also a human, they tried to seek my help. While I was hesitating, the Dragon Elephant expert had already caught up with them. His goal was to kill these human clan cultivators. At that time, the 3 cultivators were already seriously injured. In order to protect themselves, they agreed to all my conditions. However, Master, you know that I have never asked for anything, Jian Shisan said slowly. Long Chun nodded as he listened, indicating for Jian Shisan to continue. Jian Shisan continued, at that time I didn't think too much about it. Since I knew that they came from the Lin Meng polar region, I tried to ask them about the Tao God Pagoda. I asked them if they knew about the young pagoda master of the Tao God Pagoda, Zhu Ziyin. They immediately nodded and said that they knew, but when I asked for more details about Zhu Ziyin, the 3 of them hesitated. I immediately realized that something was wrong, so I took advantage of the situation and interrogated the 3 of them. Actually, the most important thing was to use the Dragon Elephant expert as a hostage. If they didn't tell me the truth, I would tell the Dragon Elephant expert where they were. As a result, they finally told me some useful information. Jian Shisan's expression gradually became serious. So it turns out that the background of these 3 people came from the Tao God Pagoda. They are the elders of the Tao God Pagoda. The reason why they came to the Long Meng polar region this time was not for their own use, but to develop some pills for the entire Tao God Pagoda. Jian Shisan said, as for the effects of the pills, I won't talk about it for now. At that time, I mainly asked about Zhu Ziyin, and the answers of the elders were not much different. More than 400 years ago, Zhu Ziyin was brought back to the Tao God Pagoda by the Pagoda Master of the Tao God Pagoda. Because Zhu Ziyin had the Divine Phoenix physique, he was appointed as the next Pagoda Master by the Pagoda Master of the Tao God Pagoda. Chapter 2059. Seeing that Long Chun did not respond, Jian Shisan continued, what I said above is what the Tao God Pagoda said to the outside world. It sounds like the Tao God Pagoda is being selfless, But after I tortured those elders of the Tao God Pagoda, I forced them to confess. After that, the three of them told me the true origin. Hearing this, Long Chen's curiosity was piqued. He hurriedly asked, could it be that there are some disputes in this? All in all, Long Chen was very confused. 400 years ago, the three of them had just arrived in Hong Meng world. They weren't a match for the various forces in Hong Meng world. In order to save Long Chen, Zhu Ziyin had sacrificed himself. In order to save Jian Shisan's life, he had no choice but to stay behind. This caused the matter of Zhu Ziyin already belonging to the Tao God Pagoda. However, after hearing it today, if this matter had another origin, it would make Long Chen think a little more. Jian Shisan nodded and said, after all, so many years have passed. Those elders' memories are also uneven. I sorted it out and it's roughly like this. 400 years ago, Zhu Ziyin was captured by the Tao God Pagoda. Those people from the Tao God Pagoda took a fancy to Zhu Ziyin's 1 in 10,000 divine phoenix physique. Therefore, they also had the idea of letting Zhu Ziyin join the Tao God Pagoda. At that time, in order to survive, Zhu Ziyin naturally had no choice but to listen to the decision of the Tao God Pagoda. In the following few years, because of the guidance of the Tao God Pagoda and Zhu Ziyin's divine phoenix physique, Zhu Ziyin's cultivation improved rapidly. Originally, it was something that made the upper echelons of the Tao God Pagoda happy, but after they heard of Zhu Ziyin's intentions, they gradually quieted down. It turned out that Zhu Ziyin, who possessed the strength, wholeheartedly wanted to find his master, who was separated from him, and Jian Shisan. Therefore, from the bottom of his heart, he was unwilling to be the pagoda master of the Tao God Pagoda. After a few rejections, Zhu Ziyin angered the pagoda master of the Tao God Pagoda and was imprisoned. During this period of imprisonment, something shocking happened. Jian Shisan slowly narrated. Tao. At that time, in order to prevent Zhu Ziyin, who possessed the physique of a divine phoenix, from escaping from the Tao God Tower, the pagoda master of the Tao God Tower was determined to use a secret technique. As for the contents of the secret technique, the few elders were unable to say it out loud, but its effect was similar to possession. In short, after that secret technique, the real Zhu Ziyin had already become a walking corpse, but the Zhu Ziyin who had revealed his talent in the outside world was already willing to become the young master of the Tao God Tower. Pagoda Master of the Pagoda Master of the Pagoda Master. Zhu Ziyin God Pagoda Master Zhu, not want Zhu Ziyin the God Pagoda Pagoda of the Pagoda Zhu Pagoda. Jian Shisan nodded and said, it's very possible. At least in the eyes of the three elders of the Tao God Pagoda, Zhu Ziyin was like a completely different person after using that secret technique. And his living habits after that were extremely similar to the young pagoda master of the Tao God Pagoda, who died a few decades before Zhu Ziyin. Similarly, after that, a powerful puppet appeared in the Tao God Pagoda. Its strength was roughly at the level of Hong Meng Tianjing, and this puppet seemed to be able to recover some of its consciousness at certain times. Someone in the Divine Pagoda had personally heard that puppet say Zhu Ziyin's name. At this point, Long Chen could not help but panic. Originally, when Long Chen met Jian Shisan in the small spirit world, he could not help but feel a little disappointed when he heard that Zhu Ziyin was very likely to become the next pagoda master of the Tao God Pagoda. After all, Zhu Ziyin and he had a master-disciple relationship. But now, it seemed that if what Jian Shisan said before was true, then the real Zhu Ziyin had never betrayed Long Chen from the beginning to the end. All of this originated from the pagoda master of the Tao God Pagoda, who possessed Zhu Ziyin. His 1 in a million divine phoenix physique had evil intentions. If the pagoda master of the Tao God Pagoda had really used the possession technique on Zhu Ziyin, then it was equivalent to Zhu Ziyin enduring an indescribable pain at every moment for the past few hundred years. Jian Shisan continued, Furthermore, the news from the Lin Meng polar region is not limited to this. There's still a situation? Long Chen frowned. Jian Shisan nodded and said, those elders of the Tao God Pagoda did not come here just to collect demonic beast cores. More importantly, they wanted to find the dragon descendant demon race and beg them to serve the Tao God Pagoda. Long Chen raised his eyebrows and said, the Lin Meng polar region and the Long Meng polar region are separated by thousands of miles. Why would they come to seek the help of the demon race? Jian Shisan let out a long breath and said, this is the reason why I called you here in such a hurry. There is an even more important matter. That is, the Lin Meng polar region, led by the Tao God Pagoda, has already started a war with the Hong Meng polar region. This? Long Chen was stunned for a moment and said, the Lin Meng polar region and the Hong Meng polar region have started a war. Jian Shisan said firmly, that's right. The momentum of this battle has already started a month ago. However, at that time, it was still unclear who had the upper hand. However, in this month, the two polar regions have finally revealed who has the upper hand. Who has the upper hand? Long Chen hurriedly asked. Jian Shisan said slowly, according to the news we received yesterday, the Hong Meng polar region was in a state where it was about to collapse. In the Lin Meng polar region, the Tao God Pagoda, the Heavenly Yin Demon Palace, and the Martial Ancestor Temple joined forces and almost swept through the Hong Meng polar region. However, other than the 10 large tribes that were able to survive, the other small tribes or medium-sized tribes have almost all been slaughtered. Hearing this, Long Chen immediately stood up and said in a low voice, let's leave the rest of the situation for the road. The Hong Meng polar region and the Lin Meng polar region are fighting. This is not a big deal to me, but to the Yen Li's Yen tribe, as well as the Flower Buds Hua Yen, the Broken Flower tribe should be an earth-shattering matter. Thinking of his friends in the Hong Meng polar region, Long Chen was also very anxious. At this time, Long Mu also stood up and said, the war between the two polar regions will probably spread a lot of news. I really have to go and take a look. If you go, how should the Dragon Clan deal with it? Isn't the Dragon Clan going to? Long Chen was rather worried about how Long Mu would deal with the situation in the Long Meng polar region. Long Mu waved his hand and said, it's not a big deal. Since there's an urgent matter in the Hong Meng polar region, let's go over and investigate. Logically speaking, with such a big thing happening, the Hong Meng Dao ancestor of the Hong Meng polar region will not sit idly by. Chapter 2060. Not necessarily. Jian Shisan shook his head and said, the Hong Meng Tao ancestor is not very willing to deal with the Hong Meng polar region. 100,000 years ago, because of the war with the Long Meng polar region, the entire Hong Meng polar region suffered a backlash from the heavenly Tao. As a result, the Hong Meng polar region was almost destroyed. The Hong Meng Tao ancestor has never managed it and left it to its own devices. Now, the war between the two polar regions has reached a boiling point. I heard that the 10 major tribes of the Hong Meng polar region have already asked for help. Hong Meng Tao ancestor has asked for help several times, but the Hong Meng Tao ancestor has not responded at all. This has greatly disappointed the people of the Hong Meng polar region. Long Chen looked anxious and said in a low voice, in this case, the Lin Meng Tao ancestor should not have taken action in the Lin Meng polar region, right? Jian Shisan nodded and said, that's right. Although this great battle was called a battle between the two polar regions by the outside world, in general, it was just the 3 great sects led by Lin Mingji's Tao Divine Pagoda. The clans and sects of the Lin Mingji polar region attacked the Hong Meng polar region. Who would have thought that the Hong Meng polar region would be so weak? Under the attacks of the Lin Mingji polar region, it was like the autumn wind sweeping away fallen leaves. The entire primordial chaos polar region will probably be wiped out by Lin Meng's first wave of attack. Alright, let's leave this for the journey. Long Chen looked at Long Mu and said, Long Mu, if you have really made up your mind, then go to the Hongmeng polar region with me. Remember how the three of us split up. We have to pay them back sooner or later. Long Mu smiled and said, I have remembered those old bastards of the Tianfeng tribe for a long time. This time, after we find your friends, we don't care about morality. Let's deal with the Tianfeng tribe first. Okay. Long Chen nodded and said, let's go to the space formation now. After Long Chen's suggestion, the four of them left the wooden house. Looking at the familiar scenery of Tianyang Mountain, Long Chen could not help but think of Miss Ali. He grabbed Jian Shisan and asked, during this time, did Miss Ali come back? Jian Shisan hesitated for a moment and said, she came back once, but she left very quickly. Now, Miss Ali is the patriarch of the Dragon Fox clan. With her help, almost all the Dragon Foxes have the opportunity to awaken the Dragon Fox bloodline in their body. Therefore, all the Dragon Foxes on Tianyang Mountain are still staying in their forbidden land, quietly cultivating and awakening the Dragon Fox bloodline. This process takes about a year, so Miss Ali is very likely to come back. She will not come back for a year. Is that so? Long Chen let out a long breath, feeling a little lonely in his heart. Inadvertently missing each other, inadvertently parting. The experience of rushing all the way from the Star Pool world to Tianyang Mountain seemed to be gone forever. Even seeing Ali again was so difficult. But now, since something big had happened in Hongmeng's polar region, Long Chen could not continue to stay here, no matter how reluctant he was. Back then, Yanli saved Long Chen's life. The Yan tribe was just a small, unknown tribe in Hongmeng's polar region. How could it withstand the attack of the Lin Meng's polar region? Therefore, Yanli really needed Long Chen's help. Long Chen regained his spirit and said, then let's not delay any longer. 13. Do you know where the nearest space formation is? Jian Shisan nodded and said, 200 miles from here, the Dragon Wolf clan secretly built a space formation that leads directly to Hongmeng's polar region. Let's go. Long Chen said decisively. The four of them flashed out and headed straight for the Dragon Wolf clan. When the four of them arrived at the Dragon Wolf clan, they were naturally stopped by the Dragon Wolf clan at first. Long Chen was too lazy to do anything, so he signaled Long Mu to handle it. Long Mu did not say much, but directly revealed his true dragon body, and then asked for the location of the space formation built by the Dragon Wolf clan. When the patriarch of the Dragon Wolf clan saw the true body of the Dragon clan, he was scared out of his wits. When he found out that Long Chen and the other three were here to use the spatial formation built by their clan, he hurriedly said, that's right. Scared witless, he led Long Chen and the other three to go over. After that, the patriarch of the Dragon Wolf clan said that they could use it as they pleased, and then left with their clansmen, afraid that Long Mu would do something out of line. The space formation of the Dragon Wolf clan was built in a valley. After the patriarch of the Dragon Wolf clan led the Dragon Wolves away, the valley was slightly quiet. Long Chen looked at the space formation in front of him, and he could not help but clench his fists. When Jian Shisan was figuring out the switch of the space formation, Long Chen could not help but feel a sense of melancholy in his heart. Time always passed by inadvertently. If the time in the star pool was included, then Long Chen should have left the polar region of Hongmeng for nearly 7 years. 7 years, plus half a year in the small spiritual world, meant that he had not seen Yanli for 8 years. Long Chen was very curious about what kind of patriarch Yanli would become. Hua Lei and Hua Yin should have grown up. After obtaining the falling flower divine jade, they should be able to protect themselves. At that time, he was just a kid who had just been promoted to Hongmeng Yuanjie. Now he was already a Hongmeng Tianjing. This change could be said to be earth-shattering. Jian Shisan, who was at the side, finally understood the space formation thoroughly after flipping it for a while. He said, Master, it's ready. Long Chen nodded, and his eyes were slightly excited. He said in a deep voice, "Let's begin." Long Yuan and Long Mu quickly gathered beside Long Chen, and the three of them walked into the space formation together. Jian Shisan's body burst out with a biting cold Hong Meng. The moment he displayed it, he activated the space formation. Then, Jian Shisan swept out his sword, and his whole body came to Long Chen's side. Formation activated. Jian Shisan's sword swept down, and Hong Meng's aura rose. The entire space formation suddenly burst out with an extremely bright and rich aura of Hong Meng. From the valley, a biting cold light went straight to the sky. A huge force that seemed to tear the space apart rose from the ground. Long Chen's expression could not hide his excitement, and there seemed to be some flames in his eyes. In the past, when Long Chen, Long Mu, and Long Yuan were in the polar region of Hong Meng, they were chased by dozens of experts sent by the Tianfeng tribe in the polar region of Hong Meng. They had no choice but to scatter and flee. Long Chen also entered the Star Pool world in this way, and wasted 5 years in vain. Now, Long Chen and the other two were not the same as before. This time, when they returned, they would definitely set off a storm in the polar region of Hong Meng. Chapter 2061. The Polar Region of Hong Meng, a vast wasteland with no end in sight. Above the blue sky, there were a few scattered clouds that weren't very thick. Occasionally, a few gusts of wind would blow, causing the clouds to drift away much faster. It was a relatively quiet and peaceful scene. Boom! Just as a cloud was about to tear apart this space and condense in the sky, a roar that sounded like space was being torn apart rang out. In an instant, Hong Meng began to sway. When the wind and sand swept past, the sky was filled with a roar that sounded like space was being torn apart. Then, a strong spatial vibration force was triggered from the wasteland that was originally devoid of people. At the same time, accompanied by such a spatial fluctuation, there was an almost crazy suppression force of Hong Meng. Hoochie! The space finally couldn't recover from the shock. In a few moments, it finally shattered and bloomed. However, in the blink of an eye, a very conspicuous and magnificent spatial crack appeared on the wasteland. The violent Hong Meng vibration bombarded this area. The two forces blended and directly caused the sky to shake. After a few breaths, 4 figures emerged from the crack. Almost at the same time, the 4 people stepped forward and completely landed in the Hong Meng polar region. The leader looked at the sky in a daze. After looking around with his cold eyes, he couldn't help but show a few traces of horror in his expression. But very soon, this kind of shock flashed past and was replaced by a kind of determination. Hong Meng polar region, we're finally back. Long Chen let out a long sigh, then looked around with a relaxed expression. Behind Long Chen, the 3 people also gradually got rid of the control of the spatial array and turned to look around. Feeling the unique strength of the Hong Meng force in the Hong Meng polar region, and looking at the environment that was indeed worthy of being called the Hong Meng polar region, the 3 people didn't have any doubts. Naturally, they were sure that this was the Hong Meng polar region. This spatial array is really amazing. In just a few hours, we actually came to the Hong Meng polar region. Jian Shisan, who used the spatial array for the first time, was quite surprised. Master, do you know where this is in the Hong Meng polar region? Why does the spatial array of the Dragon Wolf clan lead here? At this time, Long Yuan came to Long Chen's side and asked with a frown. Long Chen shook his head and said, I don't know. Not to mention the current me, when I was in the Hong Meng polar region, I just wandered around. In short, I only went to a few places, most of which you know. The Hong Meng polar region was so vast, how could Long Chen know what area it was? Long Mu nodded and said, let's go first. If I had known, I would have asked the Dragon Wolf clan's chief in advance. I think this should be the place near the Hong Meng polar region that borders the Long Meng polar region. The cost of a spatial array is very high, and with the strength of the Dragon Wolf clan, I don't think they can make a spatial array that leads directly to the heart of the Hong-Meng polar region. Long Chen said slowly, the Lin-Meng polar region, the Long-Meng polar region, and the Hong-Meng polar region border each other. I only hope that the area we are in now is not the place where the three regions border. Otherwise, it is very likely that we will meet people from the Lin-Meng polar region. Are you afraid? Long Mu twitched his mouth and asked. I'm not afraid, Long Chen replied firmly. Long Mu was just about to continue asking when Long Chen laughed and said, I still want to let the people from the Lin-Meng polar region live for a few more days. Good for you, Long Mu said angrily. Jian Shisan was quite helpless. He stepped back slightly and then jumped up, holding the void sword in his hand, and directly rose into the sky. Long Chen naturally knew what Jian Shisan meant, so he waved his hand to Long Mu and Long Yuan and said, Let's try to walk around first and figure out the area we are in now. In this way, Jian Shisan explored in midair. Long Chen and the other two had lost a lot of vitality in the spatial array, so they had to walk on land, trying to figure out the situation in the Hong-Meng polar region. After half an hour, Long Chen still could not see the end of the wilderness, and the sky was still blue. Long Mu, who do you think will have the upper hand in the battle between the Lin-Meng polar region and the Hong-Meng polar region? Long Chen asked. Long Mu thought for a while and said, According to the current situation, the Lin-Meng polar region should have the upper hand. If there are no accidents, the Lin-Meng polar region should have the overall victory, but now it's hard to say. Why do you say so? Long Chen frowned and asked. Long Mu chuckled and said, Aren't we here already? By the side, Long Yuan laughed out loud and expressed his agreement. Long Chen shook his head helplessly and thought, Your ability to brag is better than mine? Suddenly, Jian Shisan, who was moving in midair with the help of the sword force, rushed down and went straight to Long Chen. He said, Master, there is a group of people in front, rushing towards us. It seems that they are fleeing. Long Chen was on land, so he naturally did not notice this. He quickly said, Fleeing? Are they being chased? Hearing this, Jian Shisan immediately released a sword force in front of him, which directly swept across the sky. After a while, Jian Shisan said in a deep voice, Yes, there is a group of people chasing behind that group of people. It seems that the cultivation of these two forces is about the same. They are both Hong-Meng Yuanjie, and there seems to be a Hong-Meng Tianjing expert among the people chasing the people in front. Hong-Meng Tianjing? Long Chen smiled and said, This is a bit interesting. When this group of people came closer, Long Chen was finally able to sense them with the power of his divine soul. Long Yuan and Long Mu naturally saw them clearly. The people who were fleeing in front seemed to be people from the polar regions of Hong-Meng, so it went without saying that the people chasing behind them were naturally from the polar regions of Lin-Meng. Long Mu let out a long sigh and said slowly, What do you say? Should we do it or not? Jian Shisan said, We are new here, so let's not do anything. If we cause waves in the eyes again, it will be another troublesome matter. Long Yuan also nodded to show that he agreed with Jian Shisan's suggestion. Long Chen was still undecided and was still looking at the group of people with the power of his divine soul. Suddenly, there seemed to be a familiar figure? Long Mu saw Long Chen and was stunned for a moment. He quickly asked, What's wrong, what did you see? Long Chen smiled and said, There is actually an acquaintance. An acquaintance? Long Yuan frowned. Long Chen nodded, and a trace of nostalgia flashed in his eyes. The person in front of him had a few connections with him. He did not expect to meet him here. Chapter 2062. Huff Huff. A group of people who appeared to be in a sorry state swept across the wasteland. The few people at the back would occasionally look behind them and continuously release several streams of Hong-Meng power to probe. Their expressions were slightly panicked. At the front of this group of people who were fleeing was a man and a woman. They supported each other as they flew. From the looks of it, the two of them had suffered considerable injuries. As a result, their flying posture was constantly changing. They were probably trying to relieve the pain on their bodies. Because the man needed to fly, he was constantly exhausting the Hong Meng power in his body. As the Hong Meng power was released, there was actually an icy aura that was gradually dissipating. The woman seemed to have sensed this scene. She hurriedly moved to the man's side and said, "Fan Ming, what's going on? Why is your bloodline power dissipating?" The woman who spoke looked somewhat like a heroine. However, if one looked carefully, the woman's appearance was bright and beautiful, revealing a layer of refreshing aura. However, from the looks of it, the woman's expression was somewhat desolate. Clearly, it was because of this long period of fleeing. "Xiao Xiao, I might not be able to hold on any longer. When we were fighting previously, those people from the Tao God Tower should have left some kind of imprint in my body. As a result, as long as I use the Hong Meng power now, I will suffer a strong backlash. The icy cold inner force that I cultivate is flowing away uncontrollably. How can this be? How can this be?" The woman's expression was flustered. Her face revealed a strong reluctance. The man continued, "Your great Zhou tribe and my icy frost tribe are only left with these people. Now, those people from the Tao God Tower are still chasing after us. From the looks of it, if we don't take some measures, none of us will be able to escape." The two people who spoke had met Long Chen a few times before. The man was Bing Fan Ming of the Icy Frost tribe, while the woman was Zhou Xiaoxiao of the Great Zhou tribe. Zhou Xiaoxiao frowned and said, "Fan Ming, didn't you say that once we leave this wasteland, we will be able to find a chance of survival? What other measures do we need to take?" Bing Fan Ming exhaled deeply. He slowly stabilized the aura around him and said, "Between the Great Zhou tribe and the Icy Ice tribe, it looks like only one can survive. Fan Ming, you are." Zhou Xiaoxiao seemed to have understood Fan Ming's meaning and didn't know what to say. Bing Fan Ming stopped and immediately turned around. He looked at the crowd flitting across the desolate plains and shouted, "Everyone, please stop temporarily." The large group of people following behind Bing Fan Ming and Zhou Xiaoxiao immediately slowed down and listened. Then, they all looked at Bing Fan Ming, wanting to obtain some hope of survival from him. Who knew, just as the Great Zhou tribe and the Icy Ice tribe came to a halt, in less than a few breaths' time, several black figures scuttled out from all around the wastelands. Gradually, more and more black figures appeared. Very quickly, they surrounded the two tribes. Although the Great Zhou tribe and the Icy Ice tribe had far more people than the black figures surrounding them, anyone could see that the cultivation level of these black figures was definitely much higher than the Great Zhou tribe and the Icy Ice tribe. This was the person that Bing Fan Ming was most worried about on this trip. A Hong Meng Tianjing expert from the Tao God Tower. Bing Fan Ming was only at the 9th layer of the Hong Meng Yuanjie. He had already fought with this Hong Meng Tianjing expert from the Tao God Tower. The result was self-evident. How could Bing Fan Ming be a match for this Hong Meng Tianjing expert? Naturally, he had no choice but to retreat and flee. Now, the Tao God Tower was still in hot pursuit. If he continued to flee, it would only be a slow death. Therefore, Bing Fan Ming had to give it his all. With Bing Fan Ming's strength, he was naturally an indisputable expert in the polar region of Hong Meng. In fact, because of Bing Fan Ming, the Icy Ice tribe's strength had increased tremendously, and they were even about to be ranked as one of the top 10 tribes. However, because of the Tao God Tower's attack, all of Bing Fan Ming's dreams had turned into bubbles. The Icy Ice tribe and the Great Zhou tribe had become friendly tribes because of his marriage with Zhou Xiaoxiao. However, no one had expected that when the people from Lin Meng's polar region arrived, the Great Zhou tribe would also be exterminated along with the Icy Ice tribe. Now, only the people led by Bing Fan Ming and Zhou Xiaoxiao were left. The others had long been massacred by Lin Meng's polar region. Bing Fanming stood proudly in front of the resolute black figure. Although he was severely injured, as the next chief of the Icy Ice tribe, Bing Fanming would not back down under such circumstances. Xiao Xiao, wait until I hold off the Hong Meng Tianjing. You will join forces with the tribesmen you trust and kill your way out through the gap. Remember, no matter what, don't look back. Bing Fanming said resolutely. No, I'm not leaving. I want to be with you. Zhou Xiaoxiao retorted, tears flashing in the corner of her eyes. If you don't leave, who will avenge me in the future? Bing Fanming said angrily. Your great Zhou tribe and my Icy Ice tribe have lost nearly 100,000 lives. If you and I both die here today, who will avenge this blood debt? Zhou Xiaoxiao pursed her lips, not knowing how to reply. The resolute figure in front of Bing Fanming said loudly, You've said your last words. Now hand over your life. Bing Fanming unleashed the remaining Hong Meng force within him. He turned around and glanced at Zhou Xiaoxiao. Xiaoxiao, I'm very happy to have been able to meet you in this life. Just as Bing Fanming was about to leap into the air, an extremely powerful Hong Meng presence suddenly appeared in the distant wastelands. This change immediately caused everyone in the sky to turn around and look. This presence, is it another Hong Meng Tianjing expert? Does the Dao God Tower have helpers? Zhou Xiaoxiao asked in a panic. Bing Fanming slowly shook his head. I don't think so. The people from the Dao God Tower came to the wastelands with us, but these people came from the depths of the wastelands. Once Bing Fanming confirmed the source of the presence in the depths of the wastelands, he called out, May I know who you are, senior? I'm Bing Fanming of the Icy Ice tribe. I've been forced to this point by the bandits of the Dao God Tower. Please lend me a hand, senior. Grab hold of the last shred of hope and never give up. Chapter 2063. When Bing Fanming said this, Zhou Xiaoxiao, who was standing beside him, naturally treated this unknown person as her savior. Zhou Xiaoxiao looked in the direction of Bing Fanming's pleading. As her gaze surged, hints of sorrow swept over. Perhaps it was because she had thought of what she had been through recently, but Zhou Xiaoxiao, who had always had a smooth life since she was young, experienced such a drastic change in suffering. It really was not that easy for her to endure. The Hong Meng Tianjing expert from the Dao God Tower also turned around and looked towards the source of the presence. In just a few breaths' time, 4 determined and courageous figures finally appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Before Bing Fanming and the others could say anything, or even say anything about the Hong Meng Tianjing expert from the Dao God Tower, the leader of the 4 figures said warmly, So it's Lady Zhou Xiaoxiao from the Great Zhou tribe and Brother Bing Fanming from the Frigid Ice tribe. It's been many years since we last met. Have you been well? As soon as he finished speaking, the series of pleading words that Bing Fanming was about to say were stuck in his throat, and he was unable to say anything else. Bing Fanming looked at Long Chen and tried his best to recall, but he was still unable to recall anything about him. At this moment, a slightly younger man from the Frigid Ice tribe quickly rushed over from behind Bing Fanming. He hurriedly asked, Why, you're Long Chen? Long Chen nodded in surprise. He turned to look at the man who had appeared. Thinking about it carefully, this man should be the first person from the Frigid Ice tribe he had seen in the small spirit world. If he remembered correctly, he was called Bing Yuan. Bing Fanming suddenly looked at Bing Yuan and asked softly, Who is this? Brother Fanming, have you forgotten? You met him a few years ago in the small spirit world. Of course, there's also Lady Zhou, Bing Yuan said slowly. After being reminded by Bing Yuan, Zhou Xiaoxiao suddenly recalled that back in the small spirit world, she had indeed forced a cultivator who was only at the primordial chaos prime stage at that time to address her as Big Sister. Zhou Xiaoxiao was stunned and said, Long Chen, you're actually still alive? After Zhou Xiaoxiao finished speaking, Bing Fanming, who had been depressed, did indeed recall some of his memories after Bing Yuan's reminder. He also had some vague memories of Long Chen in his memories. Could he be that Long Chen who fought against that old monster Long Chen alone? At this moment, Bing Fanming finally recalled Long Chen's identity. Oh, it seems that I, Long Chen, have done a lot of things. In the distance, Long Chen smiled. He looked at the wretched Bing Fanming and Zhou Xiaoxiao. It was truly difficult to compare them to the two people who had been all-powerful in the small spirit world back then. In any case, although these two had plotted against him in the small spiritual world, at least they didn't choose to attack him like the Sunkenwood tribe and the Tianfeng tribe. This allowed Long Chen to cultivate and grow comfortably in the small spiritual world. There was no gratitude or enmity between them. It was a blessing to be able to form a relationship with each other. Zhou Xiaoxiao took a few steps towards Long Chen and said, "A few years ago, I seem to have heard that you were besieged by the Tianfeng tribe. After that, your whereabouts were unknown. I didn't expect you to be here," Zhou Xiaoxiao said with a hint of embarrassment. At this moment, Zhou Xiaoxiao recalled more and more of what she had done to Long Chen in the small spiritual world. Xiaoxiao, before Long Chen could respond, Bing Fanming hurriedly called out to Zhou Xiaoxiao. He was probably reminding Zhou Xiaoxiao of the current situation. Moreover, from what Bing Fanming had sensed earlier, the Hong Meng aura released by Long Chen clearly had the aura of a Hong Meng Tianjing expert. Moreover, the three people beside Long Chen all had the same aura. In other words, these four people were very likely to be Hong Meng Tianjing experts. If that was really the case, as long as Long Chen was willing to lend a helping hand and help the great Zhou tribe deal with the Hong Meng Tianjing expert in the Tao God Pagoda, there would be a chance for him to escape. After Bing Fanming's reminder, Zhou Xiaoxiao naturally understood what he meant. Although Zhou Xiaoxiao was curious as to how Long Chen was able to advance to Hong Meng Tianjing in such a short period of time, under such circumstances, Zhou Xiaoxiao clearly didn't have the time to be curious. Long Chen, the Tao God Pagoda, has led troops to attack the Great Zhou tribe's Great Zhou tribe. We have suffered heavy casualties and our tribe has been destroyed. Now we need to be pursued from behind. Behind us is a Hong Meng Tianjing expert from the Tao God Pagoda. If you can take into account our past friendship, I hope you can lend us a helping hand." Zhou Xiaoxiao cupped her fists and said. Long Chen nodded and turned to look at the Hong Meng Tianjing expert who had been observing him for a long time. It seemed that this Hong Meng Tianjing expert had already seen through the realms of Long Chen and the other three. Naturally, he knew that with his strength, he wouldn't be able to deal with Long Chen and the other three. Perhaps, during this period of time, he didn't interrupt Long Chen and Zhou Xiaoxiao's reunion because he was planning on how to escape? Long Chen, Long Mu, Jian Shisan, and Long Yuan exchanged glances. The four of them flew up at the same time and floated in the air, looking at the Hong Meng Tianjing expert from the Tao God Pagoda. "You're from the Tao God Pagoda?" Long Chen asked with a smile. A hint of panic appeared on the Hong Meng Tianjing expert's face, but on the surface, he still maintained a calm expression and said, "That's right. May I ask who you are?" "Until now, we only have a grudge against the Great Zhou tribe and the Ice tribe. For those who are not related, my Tao God Pagoda will definitely not interfere. I hope that everyone can stay out of this matter." Long Chen smiled and said, "Why did I hear that your Lin Meng Polar region is waging war against the entire Hong Meng Polar region? I presume that your target isn't just the Great Zhou tribe and the Ice tribe, right?" The Hong Meng Tianjing expert from the Tao God Pagoda was speechless for a moment. However, due to the strength of Long Chen and the other three, he couldn't act rashly. After weighing the pros and cons, this Hong Meng Tianjing expert actually decisively gathered his subordinate. After exchanging glances, he quickly fled to the back. At least he had some self-awareness. Long Chen frowned and looked at Long Mu, Jian Shisan, and said, He came from the Tao God Pagoda, so he should know something about Jian Shisan. Long Mu and Jian Shisan naturally understood what Long Chen meant. They immediately rushed out and chased after the Hong Meng Tian Jing expert from the Tao God Pagoda. Chapter 2064. Two powerful auras suddenly surged out from the wasteland. Long Chen didn't worry about it. With Long Mu and Jian Shisan, it shouldn't be a problem to keep a Hong Meng Tian Jing here. Long Chen and Long Yuan stayed where they were. Looking at Bing Fanming and Zhou Xiaoxiao, who had just escaped from the tiger's den, they were deeply moved. What is the current situation in Hong Meng Polar region? Can you share some wisdom with me? Long Chen asked gently. Bing Fanming and Zhou Xiaoxiao hadn't recovered from the shock of Long Chen retreating with just a few words. When Long Chen asked, the two looked at each other in dismay. Bing Yuan quickly replied. This time, Lin Meng Tianjing sent nearly 200 Hong Meng Tianjing experts to the polar region. At the beginning, they massacred Lan Hai, Hong Sun, Nan Yang, Ling Yu, and Fang Siyuan, 5 of the 10 major tribes. Their actions were so fast that the Hong Meng polar region didn't even have time to react before the war started. After that, although the remaining 5 major tribes also had countermeasures, they were still helpless against the Hong Meng Tianjing experts led by the Tao God Pagoda. Soon, the Tianfeng tribe was saved in the name of surrendering. With the help of the Tianfeng tribe, the 2 most powerful tribes, the Tsangyan tribe and the Rock tribe, were exterminated one after another. Now, only the Falling Flower tribe and the Zishu tribe can truly fight for the Hong Meng polar region. After listening to Bing Yuan's explanation, Long Chen needed some time to react. Zhou Xiaoxiao and Bing Fanming also finally came back to their senses. The 10 major tribes of the Hong Meng polar region almost represented the top power of the Hong Meng polar region. Now, 8 of them were slaughtered so easily? When he was in the small spiritual world, Long Chen had truly seen the strength of the Tsangyan tribe. He didn't expect that even the powerful Tsangyan tribe couldn't escape the massacre. Then, how would the other tribes, especially those small tribes, survive? Long Chen frowned and said, Bing Yuan, have you heard of the Yan tribe? Bing Yuan was stunned and shook his head. Zhou Xiaoxiao and Bing Fanming also shook their heads. Is the Yan tribe your tribe? It should be a small tribe. We've never heard of it before, but can you tell us the general location of the Yan tribe? Lin Mengji's Tower of Tao has occupied Hong Meng. If the Yan tribe was unfortunate enough to be in the Lin Meng's territory, it would be hard for them to escape. Bing Yuan said slowly. Long Chen said, I can't tell you the specific location, I can only tell you that the Yan tribe is not far from the entrance of the small spirit world 5 years ago. Bing Yuan pondered for a moment and then said, If it's in that area, I think it won't be a big problem. I heard that the Luohua tribe and the Zishu tribe, 2 major tribes over there, have already united and have integrated the strength of all the surrounding tribes. He had already shattered Lin Meng's attacks several times. The Falling Flower tribe and the Zishu tribe united? Long Chen was a little shocked, and couldn't help but think of a few people he knew. Although Hua Lei, Hua Yen, and Hua Zhan belonged to the Ruined Flower tribe, after Long Chen helped them to get the Falling Flower Divine Jade, they should be able to return to the Falling Flower tribe with the help of Hua Lei and Hua Yan's body of Burial Flower. And in the Zishu tribe, Long Chen thought of the Zishu tribe. He thought of the Zishu Tianyang that he had met in the star pool. He wondered if this young man who had lived for tens of thousands of years was still alive. It seemed that he should go to the Falling Flower tribe, Long Chen murmured. Bing Fanming nodded and said, Our goal this time is also the Falling Flower tribe. Now Hong Meng's polar region is retreating step by step. We must integrate our strength. Only then can we have the power to fight against Lin Meng's polar region. Long Chen was about to answer, when 2 waves of vast energy swept over from the distance. Turning around, Jian Shisan and Long Mu returned, and the Hong Meng momentum around them had not dissipated. How was it? Long Chen quickly asked. Jian Shisan shook his head and said, he ran away. Long Chen couldn't help but gasp, and just as he was about to say something, Long Mu beat him to it and said, he should have used a secret technique. Even if he escaped with his life this time, he would have to recuperate for decades. Even so, Long Chen had to give up. I just asked, this time we may go to the Falling Flower tribe to accomplish our goal. Long Chen said to Long Mu. Long Mu nodded and said, I'll listen to you. The Falling Flower tribe, I'm familiar with it. If I remember correctly, the 2 cheap disciples you accepted were from the Falling Flower tribe, right? Long Chen waved his hand and said, they are from the Ruined Flower tribe, just a branch of the Falling Flower tribe. Just as Long Chen said this, Bing Fanming and Zhou Xiaoxia's faces suddenly changed. Zhou Xiaoxiao hurriedly said, is it possible that Hua Lei and Hua Yan are your disciples? Hearing this, Long Chen was quite surprised and said, what, you know my 2 disciples? Bing Fanming on the side added, a few years ago, 2 women suddenly appeared in the Falling Flower tribe, who seemed to have special physique. In a few short years, they advanced from Hong Meng Yuanjie to Hong Meng Tianjing. Under the guidance of the Falling Flower tribe, they are now at the 5th level of Hong Meng Tianjing. It was also because of their existence that the Falling Flower tribe was able to survive the cleansing of the Divine Pagoda. His voice fell, Long Chen paused, and couldn't help but feel happy in his heart. It seemed that the interlude back then wasn't that boring after all. At that time, it was just a matter of convenience. Now that I haven't seen them for a few years, I don't know what the situation is like. Long Chen said slowly. At this time, Zhou Xiaoxiao said again, the Falling Flower tribe relied on 2 young girls who had the bloodline of their ancestors. The Zishu tribe relied on an old ancestor who had lived for more than 10,000 years. Under this catastrophe, the 2 tribes were able to survive because of this opportunity. The opportunity was preserved, and weak tribes like us could only be destroyed by the Tao God Pagoda like this. Wait. Long Chen suddenly said, the Zishu tribe's old ancestor who had lived for 10,000 years, what's going on? Zhou Xiaoxiao said, about half a year ago, one of the Zishu tribe's old ancestor-level figure returned, and passed on the Zishu tribe's now-lost secret cultivation method, which greatly increased the Zishu tribe's strength. Otherwise, under the first attack of the Divine Pagoda, the Zishu tribe would have been destroyed here. Speaking to here, Long Chen couldn't help but feel that this experience was getting more and more interesting. Chapter 2065. Within the Hong Meng Polar region, only the Zishu tribe and the Luohua tribe were left of the 10 great tribes that managed to survive Lin Meng Polar region's attack. Tracing their origins, these 2 tribes were more or less related to Long Chen. It seemed that Long Chen had to go to the Fallen Flower tribe this time. Miss Zhou, I wonder if you can lead the way for me. I'm going to the Fallen Flower tribe now, Long Chen said with some urgency. This. Zhou Xiaoxiao hesitated for a moment before she said, Long Chen, our target is also the Falling Flower tribe. However, you have also seen our current situation. The remaining people from our 2 tribes are all injured. Therefore, if you follow us, I'm afraid you won't make it in time. After Zhou Xiaoxiao finished speaking, Bing Yuan said, I can still hold on. Why don't I lead Long Chen and the others to the Fallen Flower tribe first? Hearing this, Bing Fanming nodded. Long Chen trusted Bing Yuan, so he decided on a plan. Bing Yuan led Long Chen and the others to the Fallen Flower tribe first, while Bing Fanming and Zhou Xiaoxiao continued to lead the survivors of their tribe. Although their destination was the same, the thoughts of the 2 parties were completely different. Bing Yuan, be careful, Bing Fanming said. Bing Yuan nodded with a determined expression. Long Chen looked around at the surrounding wasteland, then said, after the Hong Meng Tianjing from the Tao God Tower leaves, he might send more experts to attack. You guys need to be careful. Zhou Xiaoxiao said, remember, let's meet at the Fallen Flower tribe later. Long Chen didn't chat too much. He signaled to Long Mu and the others with his eyes, then flew towards the Fallen Flower tribe under Bing Yuan's lead. When Long Chen's figure gradually disappeared, Bing Fanming let out a long breath and said, I didn't expect that an unknown kid would be able to advance to the Hongmeng Tianjing before us. Fate really makes fools of people. Zhou Xiaoxiao shook her head and said, you can't say that. Who knows if he was hiding his strength and biding his time in the small spirit world. I originally thought that he was dead, but I didn't expect him to be alive. So, how are we going to deal with Hongmeng? As for the traders of the polar region, the Tianfeng tribe doesn't need us to intervene. Bing Fanming sighed in his heart. Back then, under the fierce attack of the Lin Meng polar region, many tribes hoped that the 10 tribes could unite and lead the Hongmeng polar region to counterattack. Unexpectedly, because of the betrayal of the Tianfeng tribe, the Zhongyun tribe, which was originally the most powerful tribe, was destroyed. This made many people hate the Tianfeng tribe to the bone. Until now, Long Chen, who could be said to have a dead knot with the Tianfeng tribe, had returned with such a huge improvement in strength. It seemed that the Tianfeng tribe wouldn't be comfortable. No matter what, the tribesmen of the Hongmeng polar region all hoped that the Hongmeng polar region could win in this major event that concerned the survival of the polar region. After all, this was a place where their ancestors had lived for tens of thousands of years. There was a reason why it was occupied by external forces. Now that the people of the Lin Meng polar region were led by the Dao God Tower, as long as there was one of the 10 tribes left in the Hongmeng polar region, they would have the power to fight against the Dao God Tower. Long Chen, you actually survived the siege of several Tianfeng tribe elders? Bing Yuan asked doubtfully on the way to the Falling Flowers tribe. Long Chen nodded as he flew. It was just a narrow escape. In the end, there was a bit of luck involved. Otherwise, how could I, who was only a Hongmeng Yuanjie, survive under the hands of several Hongmeng Tianjing elders? Leave it to me. Bing Yuan sighed and said, if I had known that the Tianfeng tribe would do such a shameless thing, I would have joined forces with the other 10 tribes and destroyed the Tianfeng tribe first. Long Chen frowned and said, what exactly is the situation with the Tianfeng tribe's rebellion? Bing Yuan slowly said, after the 5 tribes were massacred, the remaining 5 tribes decided to join forces to deal with the Lin Meng polar region. The Blue Cloud tribe and the Rock tribe, which were located in the south of the Hongmeng polar region, had no choice but to rely on the Tianfeng tribe to pass on the news. Before the Falling Flowers tribe could respond, the Tianfeng tribe spread false news, causing the people of the Blue Cloud tribe and the Rock tribe to rush to the Tianfeng tribe. In the name of a secret discussion, it was actually a carefully planned betrayal. In short, during that secret discussion, the Tianfeng tribe joined forces with the Dao God Tower experts who had long been lying in ambush in the Tianfeng tribe and directly slaughtered the elites of the Blue Cloud tribe and the Rock tribe. With the help of the Dao God Tower, these people exterminated the Blue Cloud tribe and the Rock tribe, who no longer had the protection of their elite. After Long Chen heard this, a hint of anger appeared on his face. He remembered that a few years ago, he had entered the Star Pool world because of the Tianfeng tribe, causing him to waste 5 years of his time. Long Chen was very upset. The Hongmeng polar region is already in such a mess. Did the Hongmeng Tao ancestor not show up? Long Chen asked solemnly. Bing Yuan shook his head and said, all along, only the Blue Cloud tribe had a way to contact the Hongmeng Tao ancestor. Although the other 10 tribes more or less knew some information about the Hongmeng Tao ancestor, they did not know as much as the Blue Cloud tribe. When the war began, the Blue Cloud tribe must have tried to contact the Hongmeng Tao ancestor, but for some reason, they did not receive a response. Now that the Blue Cloud tribe has been destroyed, There is no way to contact the Hong Meng Tao ancestor in the entire Hong Meng polar region. Human. Bing Yuan looked a little dejected when he said this. This was not surprising. For a long time, the Hong Meng Tao ancestor was the religion of the entire Hong Meng polar region. Now that the Hong Meng polar region was in chaos, the Hong Meng Tao ancestor, who was the religion of the entire polar region, had not shown up. This made the people of the polar region doubt the credibility of the Hong Meng Tao ancestor. However, no matter what happened to the Hong Meng Tao ancestor, the Hong Meng polar region still had to survive. Since they were not willing to submit to the Lin Meng polar region, the remaining people had to make a final stand against the Lin Meng polar region. At present, the Falling Flower tribe and the Zishu tribe had the experience of successfully resisting the Lin Meng polar region. Naturally, they had to bear the banner of the entire polar region. In the Hong Meng polar region, all the people who were unwilling to submit would probably gather at the Falling Flower tribe. It seemed that the war would take place there. Chapter 2066. Long Chen thought for a moment and said, I have a question. This time, in the Lin Meng polar region, just the three forces of the Tao God Pagoda, the martial ancestor temple, and the heavenly Yin demon palace are enough to turn the entire Hong Meng polar region upside down? Bing Yuan was a little embarrassed and said, although I don't want to admit it, this is the truth. According to our understanding of the Lin Meng polar region in the past, it's impossible for the strength of these three forces to be so terrifying. But this time, there are 200 experts from the Hong Meng Tianjing sent out by these three forces. You have to know that in the Hong Meng polar region, even the Blue Cloud tribe only has these 40 or so elders from the Hong Meng Tianjing. In the face of such a huge force, the Hong Meng polar region really doesn't have the ability to fight back. Otherwise, those 5 great tribes wouldn't have been annihilated so quickly. A few hundred years ago, when Long Chen had just brought Zhu Ziyin and the others into Hong Meng, it was because of these people that they had no choice but to scatter. At that time, Long Chen also did not sense the strength of these three forces. How powerful were they? Why was it that when these three forces gathered, it would be so shocking? Previously, in the Long Meng polar region, the elders of the Tao God Pagoda had actually gone to search for the inner cores of demonic beasts. Logically speaking, at such a time of war, since it was the experts of the Hong Meng Tianjing, they should not have left. From the looks of it, the Tao God Pagoda was able to shine with such power. There must be some mysteries behind such a powerful force. The most important thing for this trip to the Falling Flowers tribe was to find out what the Tao God Pagoda had experienced, or even what the entire Lin Meng polar region had experienced. Long Chen said, Bing Yuan, tell me more about the Falling Flowers tribe. What's the situation with those 2 talented girls? Bing Yuan pursed his lips. He thought to himself, this is your disciple. Why are you asking me about your disciple? However, due to the situation, Bing Yuan still sorted it out in his mind and said, not long after the small spiritual world ended, the most eye-catching thing in the polar region was the Fallen Flower tribe or the incident that happened in the Fallen Flower tribe at that time. At that time, there was news that the atavistic physique appeared in the Fallen Flower tribe, an affiliated tribe of the Fallen Flower tribe. After the investigation of the elders of the Fallen Flower tribe, it was indeed confirmed. After that, the Fallen Flower tribe merged into the Fallen Flower tribe. However, those 2 girls have also leaped to the peak. With their unique physiques, they were able to cultivate the rare ancient techniques of the Falling Flowers tribe. Their strength and realm were also rising. In less than a year, they were promoted to the Hong Meng firmament realm, which was why the Falling Flowers tribe was so powerful. Because of this, Luo clan's strength became much stronger. This time, Lin Meng invaded the polar region. If there were no 2 people in the Fallen Flower tribe, the Fallen Flower tribe would not have been able to hold on until now. Bing Yuan said, and he could not help but feel indignant. Long Chen also understood. Although the Ice Tribe was also a large tribe, compared to the top 10 tribes, it was naturally too weak. Although it was reasonable for it to be slaughtered in this catastrophe, they could not let the Ice Tribe suffer. These people felt comfortable in their hearts. How much do you know about the Zishu tribe? Have you heard of the rumored ancestor of the Zishu tribe? Long Chen asked again. Bing Yuan frowned and said, Are you trying to say that you have a connection with the ancestor of the Zishu tribe? Long Chen paused and nodded slightly helplessly. Bing Yuan almost fainted. In other words, the reason why the Zishu tribe and the Fallen Flower tribe could survive this catastrophe was because of Long Chen's help? This kind of great opportunity could only be encountered by chance. Bing Yuan began to regret not grasping this opportunity when he met Long Chen in the small spiritual realm. Thinking about these things now, after all, he was just lamenting. The most important thing now was to deal with the Lin Meng Polar Region army that was besieging the Fallen Flower tribe and the Zishu tribe. This time, Lin Meng Polar Region besieged the Fallen Flower tribe and the Zishu tribe. How many people did they send? Long Chen wanted to know about the enemies they were about to face. Bing Yuan thought for a while and said, I don't know the details, but one thing is certain. The forces of Lin Meng Polar Region that besieged the Fallen Flower tribe and the Zishu tribe are definitely not all the forces of Lin Meng Polar Region. Half a month ago, the number of Hong Meng Tianjing experts in Lin Meng Polar Region has unexpectedly decreased. No one knows where they have gone. It's very strange. The Hong Meng Tianjing experts that suddenly disappeared? Long Chen's eyes flashed with some doubt. It seemed that Lin Meng Polar Region had indeed used some trick. If it was said that there were 200 Hong Meng Tianjing experts in the entire Lin Meng Polar Region, this would not be strange at all. However, to be able to gather 200 Hong Meng Tianjing experts just by relying on the Tao God Pagoda, the Heavenly Een Demon Palace, and the Martial Ancestor Temple, wasn't it too much? Possible. After all, even the most powerful Hong Meng Polar Region, the Hong Meng Tianjing tribe, only had more than 40 Hong Meng Tianjing experts. It seemed that Long Chen's initial guess was not wrong. Lin Meng Polar Region's attack definitely had an unspeakable secret. Since it's not all of their strength, then I have some confidence. I think that as long as I kill a few of the Hong Meng Tianjing experts, I will be able to intimidate them. With the help of the Fallen Flower tribe and the Zishu tribe, it won't be difficult to survive this calamity. Long Chen muttered to himself. How far is it? Long Chen suddenly became serious and asked anxiously. Bing Yuan estimated for a moment and replied, About 10 hours. If we go a little faster, we might be able to arrive in 8 hours. Long Chen nodded, and a trace of cold, killing intent flashed in his eyes. Long Chen did not have any enmity towards the people of the Lin Meng Polar Region, nor did he have any kindness towards them. At least before the matter of Zhu Ziyin was clear, Long Chen would not take the initiative to provoke them. However, because the Fallen Flower tribe had Hua Lei Hua Yen, the Zishu tribe had Zishu Tianyang, and even the Yen tribe had Yenli, Long Chen would not let the people of the Lin Meng Polar Region harm them. However, for the Tianfeng tribe that once harmed Long Chen would not care about other things. This time, Long Chen wanted to let the Tianfeng tribe know how tragic the consequences of provoking him were. Bing Yuan saw Long Chen's serious expression and did not say anything more. Among the 5 of them, he flew at the front, changing direction from time to time to lead Long Chen and the others behind him. Soon, under their rapid flight, they finally arrived at the territory of the Fallen Flower tribe. Chapter 2067. Yenli stood on top of the city wall and looked at the beautiful light array not far from the city wall. His heart was filled with emotions. A few days ago, the attack launched by Lin Meng Polar region could be said to be extremely powerful. Nearly 100 Hong Meng Tianjing experts were dispatched together. The imposing aura of Hong Meng almost suppressed Yanli, who was in the distance, within the city wall. Fortunately, even though it was such a huge attack, under the cooperation of the Hong Meng Tianjing experts of the Falling Flower tribe and the Zishu tribe, the protecting formation of the Falling Flower tribe, and the experts of nearly 100 tribes, large and small, were dispatched together. It was to shatter Lin Mengji's attack that he thought would definitely succeed. Even so, the people of the Falling Flower tribe could not cheer because everyone knew that the last attack was successfully resisted. However, how long could this kind of resistance last? The two most talented women of the Falling Flower tribe were both injured in the last battle. The ancestor of the Zishu tribe drowned his sorrows in alcohol all day long. The entire Falling Flower tribe suddenly became lifeless. However, Yanli did not give up. Yanli's nature was like this. Since he took over as the chief of the Yan tribe, Yanli could be said to be a new person. Now that the Hong Meng Polar region was facing a great crisis, as a member of the Hong Meng Polar region, Yanli naturally had to work together with the Hong Meng Polar region. The Polar region would live and die together. In the face of the countless experts of Lin Meng Polar region, although Yanli's current strength was only at the 9th level of Hong Meng's consolidation realm, Yanli still did not show any signs of weakness when fighting on the battlefield. From time to time, Yanli thought of his former friend. After the opening of the small spiritual world, they had not seen each other. However, Yanli knew that his friend was definitely still alive. Perhaps he would come to save his life at the most critical moment. On the city wall, the people from various tribes put down their past grudges and began to fight side by side. Everyone knew that if they were still entangled in the past, the people from the Hong Meng Polar region would be the unlucky ones in the end. From time to time, the light array outside the city wall would shoot out a few Hong Meng pillars of energy, which would blast out and injure the enemies who got close to the city wall. Even though it didn't seem like the Lin Meng Polar region would launch an attack, the people on the city walls were still tense. They looked at the place where the Lin Meng Polar region's people were stationed, and their eyes flashed with intense hatred. They hated the people who invaded the Hong Meng Polar region. Many of them had a blood feud with the people from the Lin Meng Polar region. This city built by the Fallen Flower tribe almost became the last hope of the entire polar region of Hong Meng. How could it not be the last hope of Yanli? This city, which used to be lively and prosperous, became extremely dull at this time. In the city, the dull atmosphere in the main hall was no worse than the atmosphere on the city wall. There were many people in the main hall. In the middle there were two chairs. A middle-aged man and a beautiful woman were sitting on them. They looked at the people below and couldn't help but feel pity. These two people were the patriarchs of the Zishu tribe and the Fallen Flower tribe. In this critical situation, the two patriarchs led the tribe to form an alliance to resist the Lin Meng Polar region. On the side of the patriarch of the Zishu tribe, there was a man who looked to be in his 40s. He held a wine jug in his hand and drank 2 mouthfuls from time to time. His expression was full of melancholy. This man obviously had a very high prestige in the main hall. In this situation, he still dared to drink to drown his sorrows. It could be said that he was very brave. The patriarch of the Fallen Flower tribe glanced at the patriarch of the Zishu tribe. The patriarch of the Zishu tribe understood and turned to look at the man who was drinking. He said respectfully, "Old Ancestor, is there really no other way?" The man who was called Old Ancestor was Zishu Tianyang. If Long Chen knew that Zishu Tianyang had not only returned to the Zishu tribe, but also became an ancestor that the entire Zishu tribe respected, Long Chen might think so. Zishu Tianyang put down the wine jug in his hand and slowly shook his head. He said, "Since the formation has already been damaged, if the Hong Meng Tianjing and the Lin Meng Polar region attack again next time, it probably won't be able to hold on. Wanting to rely on the fallen flower tribe again? I'm afraid it's not very possible for the two girls of the fallen flower tribe. However, the recent movements in the Lin Meng polar region have been a bit strange. I don't know if you've noticed. The patriarch of the fallen flower tribe frowned slightly. He said, I wonder what Senior is referring to. Zishu Tianyang said slowly, as everyone knows, the attack in the Lin Meng polar region this time was led by the three great forces of the Tao God Tower, Heavenly Een Demon Palace, and Martial Ancestor Temple. However, according to the information of our Zishu tribe, the three great forces have Hong Meng. At most, there are 100 experts of the Heaven Realm. However, there were indeed more than 200 Hong Meng Tianjing who attacked before. This makes us ponder deeply. Now, looking at the entire Hong Meng polar region, only the alliance of our two tribes can match the Lin Meng polar region. However, you can also see that there are only 100 or so Hong Meng Tianjing experts besieging us. After the battle, there aren't even 100 experts. What does this mean? Zishu Tianyang said slowly. The patriarch of the Zishu tribe pondered for a moment. He said, Old ancestor, do you mean that those Hong Meng Tianjing experts who appeared before have already left the Hong Meng polar region? Zishu Tianyang nodded and said, Before we have more information, we can only guess like this. However, since such a situation has already occurred in the Lin Meng polar region, it means that we still have a chance. How should we fight for it? The patriarch of the Zishu tribe asked. Zishu Tianyang let out a long breath and said, As far as I know, after the Blue Cloud tribe was slaughtered, many people were able to use secret methods to survive. What we need to do now is to find these people. After all, only the people of the Blue Cloud tribe know how to deal with how to contact the Hong Meng Tao ancestor. The Hong Meng Tao ancestor. Hearing this, the patriarch of the Zishu tribe couldn't help but sneer. He said, If he really cares about the lives of our tribesmen, I'm afraid that when those people from the Lin Meng polar region came to the Hong Meng polar region, he should have found out. Now, 8 out of 10 people in the Hong Meng polar region are gone, but he still hasn't shown up. What does this mean? Woo! Just when the discussion in the hall was getting heated, a horn suddenly sounded from the city wall outside. Everyone in the hall suddenly became nervous. The Lin Meng polar region is attacking. Chapter 2068. On the city wall, they were waiting. The patriarchs of the Falling Flowers tribe and the Zishu tribe stood at the highest point, surrounded by the experts of Hong Mo Firmament Realm. In the middle of the Falling Flowers tribe's team, there were 2 young girls standing valiantly at the front of the team. They looked at the dense crowd in the distance without any panic. The 2 young girls were Hua Lei and Hua Yen. When they first met Long Chen, they were just young girls. Now they were slim and elegant. However, in this catastrophe, although the 2 young girls did not want to fight, they had to do their part for the Hong Meng polar region. Beside the 2 young girls, there was a man who looked to be in his 30s. He looked at the 2 young girls standing at the front of the team and could not help but feel a little sad. In Hua Zhan's impression, the 2 sisters were gentle and lovely. They knew nothing about fighting. However, after they successfully obtained the Falling Flowers Divine Jade in the small spiritual world, they had to walk toward the Falling Flowers tribe's patriarch, the path that the elders had arranged for them. Hua Zhan knew very well that his 2 sisters did not want to be like this. They got the Falling Flowers Divine Jade just to survive. However, since they survived, they had to change themselves. They did not want to be like this, but they had to be like this. This was the sorrow of the world. The patriarch of the Falling Flowers tribe looked at Hua Lei and Hua Yin from time to time. His eyes seemed to be saying something. At this time, among the people of the Lin Meng polar region, a person appeared less than 10 feet away from the city wall through the light formation. Falling Flowers tribe, Zishu tribe, I advise you again. If you want to be as sensible as the Tianfeng tribe, you should surrender as soon as possible. Otherwise, when we break your protective clan formation, your two big tribes and these small tribes who are under the protection of these small tribes will be protected by us. Even the small tribes that we're protecting are all going to die. This person was probably the leader of the Lin Meng polar region, and he was currently shouting arrogantly. The patriarch of the Zishu tribe said angrily, "In the Hong Meng polar region, there are only warriors who die on the battlefield, but there are no lackeys who surrender and live on. Don't use the Tianfeng tribe to disgust us. Wait until we clean up the Lin Meng polar region. After that, the first to be cleaned up is the Tianfeng tribe." The leader of the Lin Meng polar region laughed and said, "You have a good plan, but I don't know if you have the ability. Don't think that I can't see that the protective clan formation that you are so proud of is on the verge of shattering. Moreover, the Hong Meng Tianjing of the Falling Flowers tribe is most unexpected. The two girls of the Falling Flowers tribe can't hold on for long, right?" The Lin Meng polar region's tribites tribites Lin Meng's Lin Meng for polar region. After a short while, the leader of the Lin Meng polar ground turned to the crowd and shouted, "Elder, please help break the formation." As soon as the leader finished speaking, a wave of primordial aura rippled across the horizon. In the blink of an eye, a violent wave of primordial aura erupted, bursting forth in layers. An old man slowly walked out from the crowd. He looked at the people on the city wall in the distance as if he was looking at a group of ants. When he saw this old man, the patriarch of the Zishu tribe was shocked and said in a panic, "It's actually Li Zhuoran? He's not dead yet?" The patriarch of the Fallen Flowers tribe was shocked when she heard this. The patriarch of the Zishu tribe shook his head and said, "It can't be wrong. It's Li Zhuoran." 1,000 years ago, Lin Meng was recognized as the most promising existence in the polar region to be promoted to the Tao ancestor of Hong Meng, but he failed in that promotion. I spread the news about him, but I didn't expect him to still be alive. After the chief of the Zishu tribe exclaimed, the people on the city wall were also in an uproar. Who would have thought that an existence from 1,000 years ago would actually appear today? This kind of person who was extremely close to the strength of the primordial chaos Taofather at that time, if he appeared today, wouldn't it be easy for him to break this clan's protective array? Li Zhuoran's figure was slightly stooped. No one knew if it was the aftereffect of his failure to be promoted to the Hong Meng Tao ancestor 1,000 years ago. They're just a group of ants. It's really embarrassing for me to take action. However, since it's for the greater good, I, Li Zhuoran, am willing to risk it all. Li Zhuoran shouted coldly. Before the crowd on the city wall could recover from their shock, Li Zhuoran's figure appeared in midair in the blink of an eye. Subsequently, a vast primordial aura erupted from his body, and it actually surrounded the entire city in the span of a few breaths. Heaven and earth surged in Hong Meng, as if this space was already under the control of Li Zhuoran. Above the city, the rich power of Hong Meng gradually gathered, and the array surrounding the city had already begun to tremble uncontrollably. Li Zhuoran smiled slightly and said, "Whether it's Lin Meng polar region or Hong Meng world, in the end, it's a region that is suppressed by the Tao ancestors. However, I, Li Zhuoran, want to let these self-righteous superiors suffer the pain I suffered 1,000 years ago. I want all of you to know that you are also ants." Before his voice fell, perhaps because the explosion of Hong Meng between heaven and earth was too strong. Huff! Boom! Two sounds of the primordial chaos shattering, which sounded like the creation of the world, fell. Suddenly, bits of cold light flashed in midair, and a Hong Meng pillar of air wrapped around the rich energy that caused a violent storm. Without any explanation, it finally pressed down on the city. The moment the light array around the city came into contact with this energy, it shattered one after another. Bang! At this moment, the entire city trembled violently. Hua Lei and Hua Yan looked at each other and leaped up. The two of them emitted a rich Hong Meng aura, and with the falling flower divine jade in front of them as a medium, they went straight for the rich energy. Clang! Before Hua Lei and Hua Yan could make a move, the rich energy was a step ahead of them, completely shattering Hua Lei and Hua Yan's attack. Hua Lei and Hua Yan almost simultaneously spat out a mouthful of blood, and then paid a huge price in Hong Meng. Only then did they return to the city wall. With their strength, it was still too difficult for them to fight Li Zhuoran head-on. Hua Lei and Hua Yan. Seeing this, Hua Zhan immediately rushed over and helped the seriously injured Hua Lei and Hua Yan up. For Hua Zhan, his two sisters were everything. The clan protection array finally shattered. When the people on the city wall saw this scene, their eyes flashed with despair. Chapter 2069. Li Zhuoran's cultivation base was at the peak of the 9th level of the Hong Meng firmament realm. He had already become a famous figure 1,000 years ago. There was no doubt that Li Zhuoran had given the survivors of the Hong Meng polar ground a heavy blow. In the fallen flower tribe, those elders who knew Li Zhuoran's name, when they saw that the protective clan formation that they had placed their hopes on was broken, the sense of loss in their hearts rose to the extreme. Many people understood that as long as the protective clan formation was broken, then the fallen flower tribe and the Zishu tribe would have no chance of winning in the next close combat. Did the heavens die in the Hong Meng polar region? As the last two large tribes in the Hong Meng polar region, of course, the traitorous Tianfeng tribe could not be counted. It could be said that the resistance of the fallen flower tribe and the Zishu tribe this time should be regarded as the Hong Meng polar region and the Lin Meng polar region. The final struggle. The protective clan formation collapsed bit by bit in front of everyone's eyes at a speed visible to the naked eye. For a moment, the people on the city wall saw the terrifying Hong Meng Chi pillar, and they all panicked. More or less, they all wanted to escape as soon as possible. They all had different thoughts. Hua Lei, Hua Yan, and her elder brother, Hua Zhan, leaned together. The two girls who had just come out of their maidenhood snuggled up to each other. Their eyes flashed with regret. Thinking that their lives were going to end today, the two girls seemed to be a little reluctant. Perhaps it was because there were some things and some people that the two of them had not seen until their death. In Hua Lei and Hua Yan's hearts, they owed a person too much. Zishu Tianyang forcefully endured the enormous pressure from above. He slowly picked up the wine jug in his hand and placed it at the corner of his mouth. Then, he sighed in disappointment and let out a turbid breath. It seemed that if he had known that it would end like this, even if he was beaten to death, Zishu Tianyang would not be willing to return to the Hong Meng polar region from the Star Pool world. However, thinking about it carefully, in the 5 years that he had been back, Zishu Tianyang also felt that the experience of these 5 years was more happy and carefree than the decades in the Star Pool world. It seemed that being able to live this time was not a tragedy. It was a sad ending. The pillar of Hong Meng Chi released by Li Zhuoran crushed the brilliance of the grand formation around the city bit by bit. The entire city was on the verge of collapse. It was likely that even if the fortifying tribe grand formation used all its strength to defend against this Hong Meng Chi pillar, it would be useless. Once this Hong Meng Chi pillar fell, everyone present would most likely die. Yanli let out a long sigh of relief. He shook his head helplessly as he looked at the people around him, who were frantically trying to escape from the city walls. Unless they could escape from the city before Li Zhuoran's attack arrived, they would eventually become corpses for Li Zhuoran no matter how far they ran. Yanli looked into the distance and sighed. In this life of mine, there is nothing special. The only thing that I can rely on is my knowledge. Immediately after, Yanli jumped onto the city walls and cursed at the people of Lin Meng polar region who were already sharpening their blades in the grand formation. Long Chen, if you are still alive, Quickly come and save your brother. Otherwise, don't blame me. I don't recognize this brother." As his voice fell, Zishu Tianyang glanced sideways. Hua Lei and Hua Yin furrowed their brows. In an instant, the sound of a magnificent Hong Meng Chi wave came from the distant horizon. In the vast Hong Meng Chi wave, there were a few figures who were rushing over at an extremely fast speed. The person in front of the few figures looked very much like Long Chen. Isn't this an illusion? Yenli rubbed his eyes. His expression was slightly flustered. In a trance, it was difficult for him to control his emotions. Boom! An incomparably horrified sound came out. Bursts of Hong Meng explosions resounded through the sky. Between the heavens and the earth, it had already become the source of this stormy wave. On the city walls, the people who were originally prepared for death slowly opened their eyes. When they saw what was happening in front of them, their expressions were incomparably shocked. Then, their expressions froze on their faces. The moment Li Zhuoran's Hong Meng Chi pillar was about to shatter the entire city, it was actually shattered by another even more powerful and magnificent Chi force. Immediately after, what was destroyed was not the city of the Falling Flowers tribe. Instead, it was Li Zhuoran's Hong Meng Chi force. 5 resolute figures appeared in front of everyone's eyes. The person in front stood proudly in midair. The Hong Meng Chi force around him had yet to dissipate. It was obvious that the Hong Meng Chi pillar that shattered Li Zhuoran's Hong Meng Chi force was the work of this person. Everyone on the city walls had shock written all over their eyes. The attack of the peak of Hong Meng Tianjing Stage 9 was actually shattered just like that? How was this possible? Those people who had already begun to cheer for the imminent victory of this battle were suddenly speechless. On the city walls of the Falling Flowers tribe, too many people found it difficult to wake up from this huge reversal. However, this time, the people on the city walls had a unified point of view. That was, they seemed to have been saved. The elders of the Falling Flowers tribe and the Zishu tribe were all shocked. They looked at Long Chen and did not know what to say for a moment. Zishu Tianyang's eyes were slightly dull. Then, he laughed bitterly and said, "Kid, ha ha, I knew it." Master. Hua Lei and Hua Yin could not be more familiar with the face. They immediately rushed to the city walls and waved at Long Chen. Yenli, who was standing on the city walls, did not react for a long time. He was still a little confused. Was all of this an illusion? Yenli, you've been the tribe leader for so many years, but you're still so hot-blooded. It seems that you really should have followed me to explore the small spiritual world. The voice that came from midair completely stunned Yenli. He looked at the figure that was less than 100 feet away from him. His eyes flashed with a strong sense of friendship. Scenes of the past came back to him one after another. Long Chen, brother. A slightly bitter voice came from Yen Li's mouth. Yenli did not know what expression to make for a moment. Long Chen first saw Yenli, then he saw Zishu Tianyang. Then, he saw the 2 sisters, Hua Lei and Hua Yin, who were already looking at him. They communicated with their eyes. Long Chen looked at so many familiar faces and could not help but feel a burst of affection. If he had come a little later today, so many familiar faces would have disappeared just like that. How painful would that be? Chapter 2070. In Yen Li's impression, Long Chen should be like this. He should have a passion for life and a fearless nature. They had known each other for hundreds of years and had not seen each other for almost 10 years, but it did not diminish the friendship between them. The friend who had fought side by side with him had now become such a great hero who saved the world. However, Yenli knew that no matter what Long Chen had become, he would still be his brother. Long Chen's figure moved slightly, as if space had been torn apart. When Yenli looked again, Long Chen had already appeared beside him. They had not seen each other for many years, but the next time they met was in such a situation. Long Chen smiled bitterly and said, "With me here, with us brothers here, there is nothing to be afraid of." Yen Li's eyes glistened. For a moment, he did not know what to say and could only nod vigorously. At this time, Zishu Tianyang had already walked over. When Long Chen saw the respectful smile on Zishu Tianyang's face, he couldn't help but chuckle and say, "It seems like you've been doing well in the past few years." Zishu Tianyang smiled and said, "It's alright, at least it's more comfortable than in the star pool." Long Chen waved his hand and said, "This is Yenli, my friend." Thinking that with Zishu Tianyang's status, he should not be acquainted with Yenli, Long Chen hurriedly introduced him. Yenli had already jumped off the city wall and walked to Zishu Tianyang's side with an awkward expression. He laughed and said, "I am the chief of the Yen tribe." Zishu Tianyang nodded and said, "I did not think that Yenli was actually a good friend of Elder Long Chen. It was really negligent. Let's talk about this later. The most important thing now is not to make friends." Long Chen looked at the distant horizon. Although the figure looked a little weak, it contained a strong Hong Meng power. His expression became firm. "Master!" A clear voice was heard. Long Chen hurriedly turned around and saw two graceful girls. After not seeing them for a few years, his two cheap disciples had already become slender and elegant. However, these two beautiful girls should have lived like flowers, but in this situation, these two girls shouldered too many heavy responsibilities that they should not have shouldered. Hua Lei and Hua Yen looked at Long Chen, their eyes glistening. After they had parted ways with Long Chen, they had returned to the remnant flower tribe. However, after a short while, they had received news that Long Chen had been besieged by the Hong Meng firmament realm experts of the Heavenly Wind tribe. Hua Lei and Hua Yen were heartbroken when they heard that Long Chen was still alive. The two girls had a lot of feelings for their master. Although they had only known each other for a short period of time, Long Chen had stayed with Hua Lei and Hua Yen for a long time, and gave Hua Lei a great image. Especially when Long Chen did his best to obtain the falling flower divine jade for them, it undoubtedly gave Hua Lei and Hua Yen too much hope. Naturally, the two sisters, who had the falling flower divine jade, completely erased the negative effects of the body of flower burial. From then on, the two sisters' cultivation improved by leaps and bounds. Soon, they attracted the attention of the main tribe of the remnant flower tribe, the Falling Flower tribe. Under the investigation of the elders of the Falling Flower tribe, they quickly found out that Hua Lei and Hua Yen already had the Falling Flower divine jade. After a discussion in the Falling Flower tribe, they decided to integrate the remnant flower tribe into the Falling Flower tribe. Hua Lei and Hua Yen would focus on nurturing the two sisters. Soon, with the full support of the Falling Flower tribe, Hua Lei and Hua Yen gradually blossomed. Just like that, Hua Lei and Hua Yen became the protagonists of this battle under the understanding of everyone. However, no one had ever thought about what Hua Yen and Hua Lei's original purpose was. With the body of flower burial, if they could not obtain the falling flower divine jade, what awaited them was only death. They only went to the small spiritual realm to survive. However, when they really obtained the falling flower divine jade, everyone regarded them as rising stars. Perhaps, after this period of nurturing, Hua Lei and Hua Yen would also feel that they should be like this. They lost their sense of self and thought that they were right. This was the most terrifying part. It was not because they had forgotten something, but because they had forgotten something. Long Chen smiled at Hua Lei and Hua Yen and said, "I haven't seen you for a few years. You have all grown up." Hua Lei and Hua Yen quickly nodded. Hua Zhan also followed and said, "Brother Long Chen, I'm so happy to see you again. You always appear at the right time." Long Chen laughed and said, "The appearance of a big shot should be like this. Watch carefully what happens next." Before Long Chen could leap out, the people on the city wall were already stunned. Especially those who were not familiar with Long Chen's deeds. When they saw Long Chen suddenly appear and counteract Li Zhuoran's attack, and then leap onto the city wall, they realized that he was acquainted with the two sisters of the Falling Flower tribe and the ancestor of the Zishu tribe. Some people could not help but be curious. Who was this person? No matter what, Long Chen's appearance still gave the people on the city wall, who were already disappointed at the beginning, a glimmer of hope. The hope of survival. Who is it that can break my attack? I don't remember there being such a person in the polar region of Hongmeng. At this time, in the distant sky, Li Zhuoran, who had a weak figure, looked at Long Chen for a long time and finally could not help but shout. As soon as his voice fell, Long Mu and the others leaped forward. Jian Shisan and Long Yuan also immediately followed, and directly stood on the same level as Li Zhuoran. Looking at the three people who put on a fearless expression, even Li Zhuoran's heart was in turmoil. In terms of strength and realm, Li Zhuoran deserved to be the first here. 1,000 years ago, Li Zhuoran had tried to become a Tao ancestor of Hongmeng. Although he failed in the end, it could be seen that Li Zhuoran's aptitude and realm. The strength of the upper realm should be shocking. Long Chen looked at Zishu Tianyang and frowned. He said, "What is this person's background?" Zishu Tianyang said solemnly, "A person from more than 1,000 years ago. At that time, he was quite famous. Although everyone knows this name now, most of them have not seen him for a long time. If he did not suddenly appear today, many people would have thought that he was already dead. His strength and realm should be the 9th layer of Hongmeng Tianjing. How about it? Are you confident?" Long Chen shook his head. Chapter 2071. What Long Chen said was true. With his current strength, he had no confidence in defeating Li Zhuoran, who had reached the 9th layer of Hongmeng Tianjing 1,000 years ago. Previously, he was able to withstand Li Zhuoran's attack mostly because of Long Chen's sudden attack, and with the help of Long Mu, Jian Shisan, and the others, he was able to successfully shatter Li Zhuoran's Hongmeng Qi pillar. And now, Li Zhuoran was standing upright. In midair, that meant that the crisis was still not over. At this time, Long Mu slowly descended, walked to Long Chen's side, and said in a low voice, "Something's wrong. That old man shouldn't be his real body." Looking at Long Mu's dignified expression, Long Chen knew that this was not a lie. He did not hesitate and immediately looked toward the sky. The Hongmeng Qi aura around Li Zhuoran was abnormally strong, and it could be said that it was undulating. However, when ordinary strong people had not experienced a great battle, they would never let their Hongmeng Qi aura be so strong. They would let their Hongmeng Qi aura stabilize, and Li Zhuoran's move was undoubtedly revealing 300 taels of silver here. Long Chen frowned and said, "You mean, this Li Zhuoran is most likely a doppelganger?" As his voice fell, Zishu Tianyang was also shocked, and quickly looked toward Li Zhuoran in midair. Long Mu slowly nodded. "How confident are you?" Long Chen asked. Long Mu's expression was resolute and said, 50%. "Enough." Long Chen laughed loudly. At this time, perhaps because Long Chen had no intention of replying to him, Li Zhuoran, who was in midair, couldn't help but feel embarrassed. He continued to shout, "Since you dare to stand up and block this old man's move, why are you afraid at this time? Brain?" Long Chen also came to ask, even if the current Li Zhuoran was a doppelganger, then what was the cultivation level of this doppelganger? Long Chen directly flew over and muttered to himself, "You are not qualified to shout here. Looking for death?" Hearing this, Li Zhuoran could not help but be furious. Li Zhuoran had lived for more than 1,000 years, and no one dared to speak to him like this. Long Chen had no intention of giving in. His figure flew out quickly, and at the same time, he shouted, "If your real body was here, I would not be so rash. But now you are just a doppelganger. Where did you get your courage?" Li Zhuoran's expression suddenly became sluggish, and for a moment, he did not know what to say. In an instant, a monstrous primordial chi flame condensed behind Long Chun. Waves of primordial spiritual energy rose, and in an extremely short period of time, it connected to the sky and came into contact with the dense primordial chi in the air. At the same time, the primordial chi flame that spread out from Long Chen's body pounced towards the sky one after another. Then, in the shortest time possible, it activated the formation base of the Great Clan Protection Formation around the walls of the Fallen Flower Tribe, and within the reincarnation cycle, the strong chi that came out went straight to the sky. Long Chun was gambling. This was the only time Long Chen would be able to use this attack. If this attack could not subdue Li Zhuoran, or Li Zhuoran's doppelganger, then Li Zhuoran's doppelganger, Long Chen, who had already rushed toward Li Zhuoran, would bear the brunt of Li Zhuoran's counterattack. Even in the current situation, Long Chen was sure that Li Zhuoran was a doppelganger, but regarding the doppelganger's strength, Long Chen still did not know. Just like when Long Chen saw the doppelganger of the Dragon Python Patriarch in Longmeng Polar region. The Dragon Python Patriarch still had absolute oppression over Long Chen. The doppelganger was strong, so naturally the doppelganger was stronger. When Long Mu saw Long Chen's rash actions, he could not help but take a deep breath. It seemed that only Long Chen dared to make such a big gamble. In midair, Li Zhuoran, after recovering from the shock of Long Chen seeing that he was a doppelganger, immediately threw himself into the battle with Long Chen. Looking at the various methods that Long Chen displayed in such a short period of time, Li Zhuoran's eyes flashed with surprise. There was no other reason. It was because Li Zhuoran sensed Long Chen's strength from the Hong Meng Qi that surrounded him. Even if you know that I'm a doppelganger, so what? You're just a rash brat of Hong Meng Tianjing. How dare you be so arrogant? Li Zhuoran roared. Almost at the same time, Li Zhuoran also released the majestic Hong Meng Qi within his body. In a short period of time, Li Zhuoran once again released the same attacking Qi as before. Then, just like before, a fierce Hong Meng Qi pillar appeared. Just as Long Chen was about to pounce over, the pillar of Meng Qi shot out and collided head-on with Long Chen. At this time, Long Mu, who was standing on the city wall, shouted at Long Chen, "Power of the Divine Soul." Long Chen, who was about to collide with Li Zhuoran, seemed to have heard this shout. Immediately, his mind moved. Suddenly, an extremely difficult-to-perceive qi burst out from Long Chen's body. With an unstoppable momentum, it went straight for Li Zhuoran. Boom! Two completely different Hong Meng auras collided not far away from the city wall. In an instant, several majestic and powerful shockwaves burst forth from the collision. The experts on the city wall naturally would not sit still and wait for death this time around. Immediately, one of them appeared. One of them activated Hong Meng Qi pillars and used his own strength to resist the shockwave. Hua Lei and Hua Yin didn't make a move. Long Mu, who came with Long Chen, had already solved everything. Yanli looked at Long Chen, who was so heroic that it reached the clouds, and couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Not long ago, he also wanted to be like this. Zishu Tianyang couldn't help but shake his head. When he was in the star pool, Zishu Tianyang knew that Long Chen wasn't an ordinary person. At that time, Long Chen was only in the first layer of Hong Meng Yuanjie. Perhaps in the understanding of these people in the Hong Meng Polar region, Long Chen had experienced 5 years. Long Chen, who had come out of the star pool realm with Long Chen, was very clear that 5 years in the primordial polar ground was merely 5 days in the star pool. In just half a year, Long Chen actually broke through to the Hong Meng Tianjing realm? How terrifying was this? In midair, the fierce bombardment fell, and the battle was decided. At this time, Long Chen finally understood Li Zhuoran's true strength. This doppelganger had the strength of the 7th layer of Hong Meng Tianjing realm. Previously, it was a bit exaggerated to be able to display such a powerful Hong Meng spirit pillar. Li Zhuoran's expression was incomparably shocked, and his whole body was dripping with blood. In this competition, he didn't lose to Hong Mengqi pillars. Instead, it was Long Chen's spiritual power that silently invaded his body. This time, Li Zhuoran was originally destined to win, and it was a strong reversal. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.